Hey, it is September the 13th, 2023, and you know why you're here, so let's kick this off right and introduce the players. Hey, I'm Gerissar, a WoW esports aficionado.
Hey guys, I'm Bigmoran and I'm a roleplay PvPer, and we're joined here today by Mmarkers, who is a Disc Priest aficionado and actually a Wrestler Druid as well, who likes to do big damage. So, Mmarkers, why don't you introduce yourself?
What is up, guys? Thanks for having me on. I love talking and especially like theory crafting for like especially Disc Priest because there's just so much depth to it currently. Maybe that might change, but I just love talking it. So thank you guys for having me on, and excited to talk about all the stuff going on for Disc.
Indeed, I'm really excited for this. Just because Disc is such a fun spec. It's one of the, I think it and Fist Weavers are the only ones that are really. Primarily were the DPS healers. I guess you could argue that evokers are also in a way, but I don't think evokers put out quite the same damage. I guess just quickly, out of as a DPSing healer, which one would you prefer to heal as a DPS or DPS heal?
Like which one do I prefer to do damage on? In a way?
Yeah.
So I actually get this question pretty frequently. Like, which one is that does the most damage? Can you rank them? So I would say currently Disc Priest has the highest potential, but and it's very close with Evoker though. I think Evoker, if you were to negate healing completely, Evoker may actually come out on top. If you are like for the average player, if you like spec crazy into Disc will definitely do more. And Disc is more viable to do damage, but I would say Disc number 1, Evoker 2, and then it's such a probably Holy Priest is 3. Honestly,
Holy Priest
damage has just been really good recently.
Okay, and then Mistweaver for fist weaving, and then or Holy Paladin.
Fist Weaver definitely, and Shamans. Yes, Shamans another good one. If you just like do damage, if you're just trying to do damage and max it out, damage is very good, but it's not as like feasible or realistic in a game.
But the thing is, if you're damaging as a Wrestler Shaman, you're not healing.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, interesting. It's funny that you get asked that so much.
Yeah, well, because it's like I know people think of how I play as a complete meme, which partially but it's the most fun play style I've ever done in my life, because like you're trying to balance so many things at once, and it's just so satisfying to be able to pull multiple things off at once. And it's just so much fun. Like I don't care if I lose games, some games here and there because I'm playing too aggressively, because I win games too. It offsets itself sometimes.
I don't know about you, Markers, but when they reworked Master Shapeshifter for Druid, I was like, oh, this is going to be amazing. I'm going to do so much damage. But it's like you really don't do that much damage on a Druid anymore. Like you can like do tickle damage, but it's kind of awkward. Like I was trying some stuff in twos with like Convoke and Master Shapeshifter. And like hitting the dummy, I was really like excited. I was like, "Oh my god, I'm gonna crush someone!" But then you get into arena and you like convoke a warrior, you drop him by like 20%. Like, okay, that did not.
Yeah,
I did nothing.
It's Heart of the Wild or bust right now. So outside of that, it's just nothing. Disc Priest dots do more damage than a Wrestler Druid can do in their entire toolkit.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, that is sad. That is just sad.
But soon to be changed. So
soon. Honestly, I don't think Big. I don't think you can complain anymore because I think your tree ants do everything for you right now. That you actually can just push one button, sit back, and watch the gameplay itself.
Hey, but I was the person who pushed the button. Don't tell me my tree ants are going. I am doing. I have to put
BM Hunters is auto attacking. At least you press the tree. Yeah.
That's true. That's true. All right, enough memeing around. Let's do some need, greed, and pass, and then we'll get into the rest of the show.
This likely won't be a clean fight, so keep your distance, eh?
All right, need, greed, and pass, always my favorite. So this one is actually mine. So get ready for some silliness. As always, in the segment, 3 options are going to be presented. We'll pick individually which one we'll need, greed, and pass on. You at home, by all means, play along. Hop on over to their Discord. We have a thread always after the show, so you can play along there. If you happen to be live, on Twitch, you can type it right into the Twitch chat and play along there. So this one, we've been having a conversation for a little while now over on the Technically PvP Discord, or the channel there over at Bonus Rolls, and it was always talking about like how can we, or what's something that the devs could do to help players understand PvP and become more comfortable with PvPing, right? So one of the ideas was doing an intro to PvP, similar to how they have right now for, when you first load up with a first character, you have the intro zone, and it teaches some PvE stuff in that, and maybe do like some PvP there as well, bring in some AI, so you kind of play around, learn how to CC and stuff like that. So get you right at the very beginning, so you're not waiting until somebody's max level. Another one is something that's greatly missed is the lack of PvP tuning that's in tooltips. So adding that in the tooltips, so when a person hovers over an ability, they know that it's actually going to do 20% less of whatever, or 20% more, maybe, depending on whatever the ability is. And then the other one is a little bit of something I was thinking of, is in the LFG system, having like an AI added into the background to assist with matchmaking, so that just kind of automate it. Just so when a person's trying to go through there, if they happen to have an experience level of let's say 1800, that then it helps them find people that are also 1800 rating, not the people who are sitting in LFG saying that they are 2K plus and looking for 2K players when really they're 1600, right? So I know that they have it right now where you have the little box that shows up and it shows what the character's rating is, and you kind of have an idea of who's posting in there for the leaders. But I thought maybe like actually get some AI, get some active assistance in there to help people link up and whatnot. So that's the three options. So in ways to help improve people's understanding for PvP, once again, so I'll do it in this order, but PvP tuning in the tooltips, a PvE training experience, and an update to the LFG system with matchmaking AI. I'm going to throw it to Big first. What's your picks, bud?
It's really interesting. I mean, I think I would probably intuitively need on the PvP training experience, because I think Comstomp kind of does that in a way for BGs. And if there's like a Comstomp for Arena where you could actually like CC the enemy NPCs, or if you could have like a sandbox mode where you could test stuff, with actual variables, like here, like I want to attack a warrior with 40% versatility, what is my damage going to look like? I think that would be very practical, both from like a player point of view and also like a content creator point of view. Like if you're a streamer and you're wanting to teach something or show something on your stream, that would be like fantastic. So I'm gonna need on that. I'm actually gonna agree on the LFG with matchmaking AI. I think that's sort of one of the hurdles of the LFG system. Like one of the main drawbacks is like people are very stingy on who they want to invite, and of course like there's deception and whatever, as you mentioned. And I think if we can just get people to press a button and like bam, they have a group instantly, that would be amazing. Because I think it's, at the end of the day, it's better to play and lose than not play at all. That's like that saying, it's better to love and whatever than not love at all. It's the same thing with like WoW PvP. Like it's better to play than not play, I think. So, and then I'm gonna pass on the PvP tuning and tooltips. I mean, I think it's like practical, but yeah, I don't know if it's would have as much of an impact as the other two things.
Fair enough. Now, what about you, Mark?
I'm gonna go with the same exact ones. So I think I would need on the training experience, because exactly what Miranda was saying, the training part of it would be so awesome, like a comp stomp, because especially if solo queue is like their way to go in the future, having something to just load into and practice. You're playing a brand new spec, but you have MMR from your other spec, and you just want to practice. You just want to test a new talent. You like at this current point, you have to risk your rating just to test something, which is unfortunate. And there's no like way to unless you're wargaming, but that's like impossible to group up, and that's a system that's not even publicized in the game. You have to put in a script in a way to initiate a war game. So something like that. And then I know Lika posted something on Twitter about like having some sort of like PvP journal. I thought that was a super idea that could go along with the training experience. With had like a dungeon journal in a way, and it showed like priests, and you click on disc and it'll show all their cooldowns that they have, or if in DPS it shows their offensives and defensives. Just a way for like people to get into the game, because like currently I talk about it all the time. At this current rate, like Blizzard's getting their goal needs to be like, how many players can I bring back, rather than how many new players can we bring into the game, just because it's so overly complicated at this point. So that having like a training experience, I think, would really help with people segueing into PvP, and not only new players, but getting PvEers, because a lot of people are very timid. I know, and like no, that's too much going on. I get super nervous. And there's no way to practice that, other than just keep queuing up. But, that could be coupled with a lot of other things from player interactions. So that would be my number one. Yeah. Number two, I'll go with the LFG as well. The LFG, it's going to be, I think it's a hit or miss. Again, I think if they're trying to go that solo queue route, which people say that might be the future because they're doing the RPGs now. LFG, otherwise, if they are trying to, keep the regular brackets going, it needs a revamp. This is no question about it. Whether it's what you said, AI. I always think of something that you could like post, and kind of like the guild finder system, where you could just put a post up looking for players. Instead of just sitting and listed up in LFG, and you have to be online for that. Why can't I be offline and post a listing that I'm looking for warriors or rogues at this rating with this experience, or this is what you are, and it's validated by the system, not by whatever you say you have.
Yeah.
And it's something that I could just see there, and then when a player logs in, they look through the LFG system, and they could go through. They can say, I want to. They honestly just go through the listings and say, which one do I look for, and then you can apply to it, and it sends like you can put a message with your BNet, your battle tag, and they can add you or something like that. Now that we have unlimited battle tags, that could be something that could be actually used, or 200, whatever, to be able to do that. And then lastly, the PvP tuning. Definitely important, but not as important, I think, as the other ones. If you have either of you guys played Lost Ark before?
No.
So Lost Ark, if you hover over a tooltip in the game, it will say on the bottom of it, it'll say hold Alt, or press Alt to see PvP modifier. So all you have to do is hold Alt on that spell, and it'll show the PvP modifier of it. And every spell has, there's so many spells that are changed in PvP, and something that like if Lost Ark can do that, well, WoW can do it too. And it's probably so simple to do. They just got to input the system at first, and then maintaining it, I would imagine, isn't too difficult. But that would be something, again, very useful, because there are some drastically, nerfed and buffed spells. Like in the recent hotfixes, it's like, I think that one of them said like heal from Holy Priest is no longer nerfed by 57%. Like, that's kind of important to know that your spell is that much weaker.
Right.
That's a
Which is
drastic
funny.
amount.
It's funny you bring that up, because that sounds really big. But then if you think about how much it's buffed by versatility, and how much versatility a person is stacking just wearing PvP gear, maybe it evens out, really.
Yeah,
but
true.
Still, it's nice to know if your abilities are tuned to hit full strength or not. I think the biggest ones were.
Oh no, you can continue.
As I say, I think the biggest one was always the CC. You look at an ability and say, CC a target for 12 seconds, and you go to CC somebody and they run around for 3 seconds and then they're out, and you're like, meh.
I didn't think about that. Yeah, because PvE CCs are like 30 seconds, and it's something specific in PvP. That's a good point.
Yeah.
Again, just abnormal or unnecessary barriers to entry to PvP.
Exactly.
That they could clear up.
So I think for myself, I guess I'm going to be the black sheep out of this, because I'm going to go with PvP and tuning in the tooltips as number one, because I think that's actually very important to me for exactly that reason. And then honestly, it's tough between the PvP training experience and then the LFG in the matchmaking, but I think I'm going to have to go for a need on the training experience, just because, similar to what you guys said, is I think that would be more beneficial in helping people improve, especially if it has if it was like the old challenger modes where it had like varying levels of difficulty, and so it would help a person improve as they were able to get through the different segments or stages, rather than just a flat one way only. If it went full sandbox like you wanted, Big, that would be, I think, huge. That'd be amazing. So unfortunately, then I would have to completely pass on the LFG matchmaking. But man, I'd love to have all of them.
Can I gotta add this because this is something I feel like would just literally change PvP or change the interest in this game. You said the word sandbox. Can they add a sandbox mode where you can make your own games, like please, like Halo Forge style?
Oh my
like,
dude!
I swear
dude.
somebody can make the sickest gameplay, and then
Dude.
you can set it up. Like there's so many games that do that where you can make custom games
Mhm.
and you can just list up. Like that is so awesome, and I think it would just blow it out of the
Yeah,
water.
because I mean, I know they're hiring like a map designer
Just let the
like a year
people do
ago.
it.
Yeah, and if that would be amazing if there could be like community maps that like what every season like they could feature a new like the best community map or
As a
something.
brawl. Yeah, that would be awesome.
So
That'd be sick.
I want to say that when they first brought out World of Warcraft, there was conversations about that. And the community was like, why can't we, Warcraft, we could always make maps, right? And they're like, oh, it's too complex. There's too many, to make a map in World of Warcraft is, it's quite complex. And I'll give that, right? A 3D part of a world is definitely more difficult to make than a 2D landscape with, with some barriers or, some trees or something like that. Quite honestly, I think Blizzard got very shy on allowing for community to make maps after what happened with Warcraft 3 and became Dota.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, are there any sort of custom maps in like Overwatch though, or any other the other Blizzard games?
No.
Like
Nope.
no, okay.
Well, the old ones, Warcraft 3. Yeah. Oh yeah, Warcraft 3. Yeah, because that was when you made like. I remember playing like Yu-Gi-Oh! Mall and Pokemon Mall, and you can make the tower defense games with a different whatever you want to name things and whatnot.
Yeah.
I thought that was my favorite thing about that game is making up games and playing people's made up games.
Exactly. I don't know. Did they ever do that with StarCraft 2?
Didn't play it.
I don't know if they.
I don't remember.
I don't remember if they allowed for maps to be made for StarCraft 2. So I think Warcraft. If StarCraft 2, no, then Warcraft 3 was the last game that Blizzard made that you could make community maps for. And then Dota happened.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oops.
Multi-billion-dollar mistake costs the community. All right.
Yep.
Speaking of multi-million-dollar, I think we'll talk quickly to the upcoming PvP events, and then we'll move into subject analysis.
Get in there and fight! Stop hiding!
Yes, stop hiding, get in there and fight. WoW PvP events up and coming. We have two. One we talked about last time. Again, reminder: the Liquids Eve Extension Mythic Plus tournament is on the 30th of September. Right now, as the qualifiers are going through, the 30th is when the top 4 teams start to battle it out on live broadcast for, I want to say, $8,000, which I think is amazing. So again, if you're participating, great on you. Personally, in my guild, we have 5 ladies that got together in a Mythic Plus team and are qualifying as well. I think they're 5th or something like that, or higher. They've been kicking ass. Pardon my language, but they've been really kicking ass. If you not, highly recommend. If you like Mythic Plus, I'm pretty sure this is a key push event. So they're going to start off with a certain level key, and then they have to push it as high as they can in the best time they can. And yeah, go watch, support these people. The other one is our friend Flark is hosting another one of his 3v3 solo queue tournaments. So this is where you don't have to have a team. You just happen to be. He'll make a group in LFG. You sign up there. He'll take your CR, make teams balanced off of character rating, and and then all of a sudden you play a 3v3 tournament all the way through, and he'll host that, and that's on the 23rd actually. And right now he's a $500 prize pool. And Yes, chat, I know Play with the Blues is technically an event, but it's not a community tournament esports event. We'll talk about that later in the news. All right. One thing I do want to point this out. So we did on Twitter. There's the Steam Scale Incinerator mount. If you don't have it, we have a code to give away. So yeah, if you're listening to this right now, stop what you're doing. Go over to open up your email. Email technicallypvp@gmail.com. Title is Mount Giveaway or subject Mount Giveaway. And just send me a quick email and I'll do a random draw for that in, I'll say actually 1 week's time. So Monday, oh geez, what day is Monday? Math is hard.
20th. Oh, no, not 20th. I'm sorry.
Monday the 18th.
18th.
Yeah. Monday the 18th at 8 p.m. Eastern, I will draw a name and you will get an email from me. So stop what you're doing, do that right now, and then press play and we'll get into the rest of the show. And speaking of rest of the show, here comes the subject of analysis.
I'm gonna light you up, sweet cheeks.
Alrighty. Okay. Markers. The reason why you're here. Disc Priest. Disc Priest. Give us the disc lowdown. Spin it.
Just, I want to say really quick, by the way, I know you talk about Flark's tournament. That was actually awesome. I got to say, I did that last time. I was skeptical. I played with like 2 random people and we got in Discord and like we're chatting up and they were like super cool and chill. And we did very well. It was actually a really cool experience. So highly recommended doing that.
That's awesome. I didn't realize you had participated in one of them.
Yeah. It took, the only downside I said it took like 5 hours. It took forever.
Yes.
But it was really fun when I did get to play, and it was cool to like interact with players of different ratings. And I think they really appreciate. Like we were kind of, there was one player that was like 1400, and I kind of just ended up coaching him half the time, and he got so much better after we did a bunch of war games, and he got so much better. It was cool, really cool to do. So
That's
I recommend
awesome.
anyone to do that, whatever rating you are.
Well, and I think that's a good point. Like, you can be a 1400 rated player, put up with a 2200 rated player, and that ends up being the balance, right? And
yeah,
I remember watching one where I don't know what the ratings of the player was, but the person whose name I didn't recognize died pretty quickly, and then the game just kind of kept going on, and then at the end that team won. And then the next game they played, the same player, they didn't die quite as quickly, but they still died. The game went on, but they still won, because that's how it works. But they were improving, which is awesome. But yeah, let's talk about improving people who want to play Disc Priest, because I'll be honest, Disc Priest hasn't. And I'm gonna blame Big here because he's the one that makes the tier list. He hasn't really put Disc Priest very high on the tier list lately on the healer side. And I know we were talking before offhand. Quickly, Marcus, can you kind of give us like how does Disc Priest play? Because I know the whole idea is like you get your atonement, so either you heal somebody, you shield them or something to give them the atonement buff, and then you DPS the enemy and they get healing based off of the DPS. But it feels like there's got to be more to it than that. That seems too simple for how complex people make this sound.
Well, I don't think Blizzard knows what they want to do, because they've been going back and forth so many times. Like if you look at the current class spec tree, the top ability is atonement, but the play style largely does not revolve around atonement. And even they can see, it seems like they wanted like this previous in 10.17 and 10.15, they kept buffing atonement, and then they nerfed like one of the big shield abilities. So it seems like they're trying to push more atonement again. And then they go through with the next patch, the new patch coming up, where it seems like they've kind of gone away from atonement again. So it's like, I don't think anybody knows where atonement wants to go. But long story short, when it comes to the playstyle of Disc, for the most part, I think their intention of design is that atonement is like a hot. It's not supposed to be like a Fistweaver's whatever the ancient teachings, where it is all your healing. Atonement is like the rejuvenation of Wrestle Druids, where you're just keeping dots up, and in between your downtime you do damage, and it's more like keeping your team afloat rather than healing your team. I don't think the intention was ever that atonement should be your main source of healing. It turns out sometimes in like twos that could happen when you're playing, how I play twos particularly, but for the majority of players and what works well at higher ratings currently, especially in solo shuffle and threes, is more of a shield based build now. So it's kind of all over the place. I think the complexity of it comes in when you're trying to min max atonement, because there is so many modifiers in the game and so many things how many buttons you have to prep. This was a huge problem in PvE as well, and this is why they're simplifying it come 10.2, because for example, if I wanted to burst somebody down, I would make sure atonement's on my target, which is either through flash heal, renew, radiance, or power shield, and that puts the buff on them. And then I would need to burst them damage. And in PvE, I kind of play like a Mythic Pluser in a way, where I'm getting my dots ready, and then I need to PI myself, and then I need a Dark Arc, and then I need to Shadow Covenant to buff my spells more, then I need a Shadow Fiend, and then I need a Schism, and now I'm ready to do damage. It was so overly complicated, and that's why they're kind of bringing it down a bit.
But if I see you do all that, what stops me from just putting you in like a clone or a fear or some sort of CC, and then you're not doing anything?
Yep. So that's it. That's the reason why it's getting changed. So it works in PvE because you're not getting CC'd, but it doesn't work in PvP because you can't cast. So Disc Priest is like the one spec that has been just so drastic between PvE and PvP. Like, you do not play remotely the same, which is so interesting because most specs, you play relatively similar. But Disc, I think when they're trying to push atonement and it doesn't work, and you end up playing more like a Wrath of the Lich King, and think, if once we talk about 10.2, like that's what it seems like they want now. They want you to play like a shield, penance, and then in between, if you have downtime, you can do some damage. But it's not like geared. The spec does not seem like it's geared towards healing. It's just all over the place, to be honest. So I'm really happy that they're trying to simplify it just for the sake of making making it a little bit more feasible, I guess, to not so overcomplicated, really.
Yeah, I mean, what's interesting is during season 1, Disc was really strong for a period of time, and I remember actually playing Disc Priest, and I remember people always would say that Disc is really easy, and I just kind of believed it without actually playing. But Disc is quite bloated with how much ramp you can do, that it sometimes feels bad from a player perspective if you're not doing that ramping. Like, for instance, penance. There's at least two main things that you can buff your penance with. One is like a proc, like a kind of random proc. The other one is you have to cast Smite or Mind Blast 4 times, and then you get a penance buff. And it always felt like if you're not penancing with those buffs, that you're doing something like crazy wrong. So it's like you really gotta. It's like Disc always kind of felt like a running machine. You got to keep every part kind of moving continuously, and if one part stops, it just feels like really bad. Like you start falling behind, which is a problem in PvP because you get CC'd, as you mentioned. It kind of disrupts the flow. Like Disc is, I think, of any healer, it's the one with like the most flow to it. And Resto Druid is kind of similar, actually, where if you kind of fall behind, if you let one thing slip, you really like pay the price compared to like other healers that just kind of have these instant like mechanics that just like boom, like I press one button, job's done. Like Disc and is definitely not a healer that you can just press one button and be fine for a long period of time. You kind of have to keep everything moving continuously, or else you just you fall further and further behind. At least that's my experience. I'm sure that's other.
That's what I think. Honestly, yeah, I think that's very well put with the flow, and maybe that's why it takes some people a little bit longer to get into it, just because, like you say, like, a holy paladin could just, if you mess up your healing or whatever, you just press daybreak and you just top your team, boom, good. But Disc and Ardruid in a way can't just do that. You need to, if you like lose your flow, you take so long for you to come back from it. And it does that. I think that's the biggest complexity to it. Biggest complaint I always get on my stream is, what do you do? I always fall behind and I can't ever top my team. How, and I always say, like, it stems from so many other things. What happened prior to that moment? And again, when you compare it to other healers, it's probably a big reason why that it is not the best healer, because not only is it undertuned compared to other of them, but it needs to be played perfectly without interruption. And obviously we all know CC is a big thing in PvP, so you're never going to play without interruption.
Yeah. I can't help but wonder then, like with Disc Priest, how important is it to be able to foresee the damage and kind of pre the go even? Like is that because like you're saying, like you can't really, there's no real reactive healing with Disc, right?
Not so much the cooldown. I guess not reactive. No, everything kind of happens preemptively. You have to like. Someone said this all when I was playing with them. Is like you need to be watching the game so closely because all of your cooldowns and everything needs to be done in preparation rather than reactive, like a holy paladin or a holy
Yeah.
priest is more so. And when the gameplay is really fast, like it currently could be, it really punishes you for not knowing literally everything that's going on.
Wow. You literally have to play God mode where you can like be omnipresent and know exactly what's going to happen to be able to stay ahead of that. I
Yep. Every
I can see um why Disc Priest has been struggling, or probably why it's been lower on the tier list, and definitely lower on when you take a look at the stats of what classes are being played. Holy Pally being very easy to play at a high level and output versus Disc Priest, where if you have that much complexity, yeah, that kind
yeah.
of
With that said, tuning can change everything. If it's tuned well, like in season one, people can say it's easy because yes, it's a lot less forgiving because it's tuned so well, and you kind of lose that. But once you I don't know a good analogy for this, but like once like the tuning comes back down, you realize the cracks and the flaws that the spec may have in it, and it just falls through really fast
yeah.
because you have nothing to fall back on.
You're not
Yeah,
getting
it's
carried by
like
the power. Sorry.
it's funny. Like, yeah, tuning is in that regard. It's like really interesting because like Pallies were considered, I think, the weakest healer in season one,
Yep.
probably the whole time. And the main problem they had was just healing output, from my understanding. The cooldowns were exactly the same for the most part. It was just like you couldn't keep up on healing, plus like you had mana issues. And once they corrected those two things, they just gave paladins a bunch of like HPS, and they gave them like 2 mana bars. They just became absolute like gods, and like kind of something similar in some way happened with Disc Priest. Disc Priest had a really good tier set in season one.
Yeah.
That buffed Powered Shield, if I remember correctly. So, and plus you play this talent that also buffed Powered Shield. So your Powered Shields, and I think they buffed Powered Shield during one of the patches in season one. So you had a lot going for you. Plus they gave you 2 charges of pain suppression. They gave you all this stuff. Um, what I'm curious about is what happened between season one and season two that caused such a dramatic drop off. Like, was there one specific change that made Disc Priest
Um,
just worse, or was it like Fist Weavers? And Fist Weavers are really difficult for priests to deal with. It's maybe a bunch of things, but was there one thing in specific?
I would say no. I think expiation was a big thing. So expiation was double dipping on like every modifier. I don't know the specifics of it, but basically expiation is the ability that when you have Purge of the Wicked, the dot on the target, you use Mind Blast and it consumes 6 seconds of it, and and like instantly deals that kind of damage, right? And it was double dipping on some modifiers too. I don't know exactly what it was, but it was doing more damage than the actual Mind Blast itself, which literally made no sense. So that was nerfed drastically, and then I think it's more so the increase of everybody else. I think so. The damage was definitely nerfed for sure, but there wasn't any crazy nerfs to like Powered Shield, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe there was, but I don't think there was any crazy nerfs to their healing. It was more so the damage got nerfed and everybody else got better. Paladins got better, Fist
Mhm.
Weaving got better. Everyone just and the DPS just kept gaining things, over and over. And that's something I have noticed until this 10-2. Every 10-1, 10-1-5, 10-1-7, I kept saying that. I'm like, why do they just keep buffing DPS and they're not compensating healers for it? And the healers that suffer the most are the ones that rely on like being able to, like we were talking about before, keep a flow, and you lose that flow when the damage just gets so high and you can't keep up with it unless you have these massive cooldowns to trade like a class like Holy Paladin has. So the expiation one was really big, but I don't remember if there was really anything that crazy. One thing that took them off the the face of the earth, because they were obviously insane at that point.
Yeah, I know. I mean, the expiation, because that was your. Correct me if I'm wrong. That was also your like hardest hitting ability too. Like, how did it work? When it would just take your dot and convert it into one hit, correct?
Yeah.
That's
Yep.
what expiation with Shadow Word Death. Is that what procced it? I don't remember.
Both did. Yeah,
Uh,
both do. So
yeah,
both
so
yeah, both proc 'em.
so it's funny because that was like your hardest. That wasn't that like expiation was like the hardest
Top
hitting ability
damage.
you could press.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so, the healer that's based on damage indirectly, getting a nerf to its like biggest hitting ability. I mean, it kind of makes sense why that would have like fallen off. But and I know like this priest and 2v2 are it's still okay, right? Like I know that actually the number one player I think on the EU ladder was a disc priest playing like disc feral, just full damage build.
Yeah.
But I think like if you want to do well in twos, that's kind of how you have to play. Like you're not going to outlast a druid, right? You have to just pump. But in threes, I think that's where they tended to struggle. Same with solo shuffle as well. It seems like discs are pretty rare these days.
Yeah. The twos, I talk about. I make like, almost like a joke that like twos, I can feel like almost a god at times when you're playing with like a rogue or a feral specifically, and then you go into threes and you feel like you're completely useless, and it's so sad. Like I have so much fun playing twos on disc, and then I'm like topping the meters like more than DPS players, and then I go into a threes match and I'm queuing a solo shuffle and I can't keep the team up for 2 minutes. Like it's crazy, and you just don't have the throughput for it. And the thing with it though, and this might attest to another reason why it was so good in season one is when the damage is really high, you just gain momentum so fast. Where you can't do that anymore. So like I used to watch what's his face Gurecki stream. He streamed disc in season one, and he was playing. Before I started playing disc so much, I was watching his stream, and I was like, wow, this is so interesting. How he's just playing full damage. He didn't play Power with Life. He just played big mind games and just all damage, no healing stuff whatsoever. But he was just able to generate so much momentum that I talked about why does aggro R druid work? I would always talk about this too. Same kind of idea. If you do more damage, that means the other team has to play more defensive. When the other team plays more defensive, they do less damage, and in turn, you have to heal less. So even if your class is terrible at healing, when you can just generate that much pressure, you don't need to heal in the first place, and you can still be successful.
Yeah, that's a really difficult concept for people to understand. That the best defense often is a good offense.
Yep.
But it's that you have to be very precise with it, right? Because there's this like mentality, oh, I just need to go in and pop all my cooldowns, and that's what that means. It's like no, you still have to be a good player, right? You still have to do the good player things. But if you can keep up that momentum, it's like absolutely insane. And yeah, disc has definitely.
Oh, do we just
Lost him?
lose? Yeah. Oh no, we lost Big
I
right as he was about to hit his like key point there.
Yeah.
Shit. Oh no.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, there you are.
Okay. Weird. I don't know what happened.
Right as you just about hit the climax of your point there, and all of a sudden it was like.
TLDR, big damn good. And that's
Speaking of Big Damn, I just question because what was it? Because was it 10.1.5 that they adjusted the mana pools in that? What's the mana pool right now for Disc Priest, like game length wise? Because that was always the thing as far as I remember with Disc Priest, your how well you did. You had like this limited time before you oomed, and then there's like just no gas left in the tank, and then your team was going to flop. What's that time length right now?
Right now, I don't even think it's mana. I almost have never run out of mana in games just because you'll not be able to heal before that you run out of mana. I think previously it was like that, but this current meta right now is so damp. And Wrestle Druids and Holy Paladins, ever since 10.1.7 with Holy Paladins, you just literally can't outlast them no matter what you do. And just because even if you go for every drink, you have full mana the whole game, you just won't be able to heal it at some point. So I couldn't even give you a number right now because I really don't go very often.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, it's a throughput issue more so than mana at this current time, I think.
Yeah, the meme, at least in 2v2, has always been like, uh, druids and priests are always really good, but druids are always going to be better because they can just win in dampening, like,
Yeah.
way easier. The disc priest might be doing an infinity damage, but eventually their healing throughput is going to be so lacking when dampening is high enough that you become worthless, and disc,
Okay.
I think out of any healer, disc suffers that problem, I think, the most. Dampening, I think, hits disc the hardest.
And starting games at 20% dampening doesn't help then. So,
Yep.
yeesh.
Yeah.
All right. But
Exactly.
let's. I love the conversation. Why don't we talk about talents just quickly? Kind of hit the. So I know if anybody doesn't know, go hit Markers. He has a YouTube channel. He has this wonderful, like, dude, man, your YouTube video on how to do Disc Priest is so phenomenal. I don't want to
Thank you.
seriously go watch it, folks. It'll make a whole bunch of this make a lot of sense. But I think just for main talents of import, what are the important ones that you think that people have to make sure they know of in the talent tree? So be it either like this is a mandatory talent or this is something that you might not realize what it's doing. This is why it's important.
Okay, for Disc Priest itself or Priest in general, or Disc itself or Priest in general?
You tell me, left side, right side.
All right. I'm gonna say when it comes to the disc or regular tree side, is there anything in particular? I would say the only big one that people don't realize is it's on the bottom left side. It's a toss up between Reduce Angel's Mercy and Binding Heal. A lot of people don't know this, but Binding Heal, if it replicates 20% of your flash shield onto yourself. So if I have in twos, for example, I do this all the time. I can flash shield my partner, and it's going to give both of us atonement just for one button. So you can kind of 2-for-1 it. I do that all the time for atonement. That's a big ability that people don't realize that Binding Heal does that. Angel's Mercy sounds better on paper because the heals from Binding Heal doesn't really do anything. But the application of a full length atonement, not like a Radiance atonement, is really, really good to use. When it comes to the disc side, I would say, oh yeah, actually no, one more. Sorry, I got one more on the regular side. From Darkness Comes Light. So this is another
Oh, I
one I
love that
notice a
one.
lot. So this one, each time your Purge of the Wicked ticks, it increases the healing of your next flash shield. So people always say, I don't want I don't care about atonement healing. I don't want a dot. What's the point of it? And this is a huge one because if you can constantly spread your dots with penance. So you Purge of the Wicked one target and penance spreads Purge of the Wicked when you hit him to two other targets. It will, or three other targets, it will start stacking, and now all three of those are ticking. Let's say you can dot a fourth target, maybe there's a pet or whatever it is, or demo locks. This works really well with, and that's going to constantly be stacking up. So when you do need a flash heal, it's going to be upwards of 50% stronger, which is really, really important to keep aware of. When I see people when they send me like clips or something, and I'll see that buff will be at 50% for like a long time, and they won't use it. So that's it's a huge shield that people don't realize that is a thing there. And then when it comes to the spec side, I'm gonna say expiation. So expiation, this is going to change next patch, but current expiation is based off of your Purge of the Wicked damage, and the current tier set buffs Purge of the Wicked. So a lot of people don't like playing this, but the big rationale for me playing this patch specifically over Harsh Discipline, which is the big penance talent, is that you're getting a way better benefit because you're getting a buff penance or buff Purge of the Wicked in the first place. And it's really nice to be able to get the benefit from that. And expiation does help, contribute to your atonement healing as well. Anything else imperative on here? I would say that's kind of like the ones that aren't really super straightforward that people play. There may be some intricacies to Shadow Covenant. So like Shadow Covenant and the extended Shadow Covenant ability is something I play in twos. And maximizing and this kind of comes into play with expiation, is using Shadow Word Death not only in an execute range, can be really useful because you are getting full effect on expiation, and if you're using Shadow Covenant as well, you get the 25% stronger Shadow or Death plus the expiation, which is I believe is also buffed if I'm not mistaken. When you Shadow or Death, so when I sometimes I don't always do this if I'm like prepping a big go or ramp or whatever you want to call it. I will sometimes Shadow Covenant and then throw a Shadow or Death in, and then do my big penance and everything. And then because you use Shadow or Death so early, you can use it again before the Shadow Covenant ends and get 2 buffed Shadow or Deaths, which is another cool thing. This is like explaining the overly complex rotation of disc is like trying to min-max all this stuff. But it is something to know is being able to Shadow or Death not only in an execute range, just because of Atonement healing. When you Shadow or Death, you are going to do damage to yourself if you don't kill the target. But because of Atonement, you actually don't lose health, if that makes sense, because you're doing more damage and you're healing atonements. You might lose a little bit, but it's virtually non-existent. So it's just an ability that you can be pressing all the time unless you need it for like a polymorph or something like that. So, and that's sorry, there's one more thing, and that's without the Tith Evasion talent, which is the one that reduces the damage done. It will still not do like any damage to you. Sorry about that. Yeah.
No worries. Is Shadow Covenant is a bit of a risk and reward though, because if you Shadow Covenant and then you get kicked on a Shadow spell, that locks out like all your healing too, right? Like you're locked out of everything for at least until you're. Am I wrong?
Yeah. Well, you still can Radiance, you still can Powered Shield, you can still Flash Heal, you can still Purge of the Wicked, you can Renew. So it's not that much of a lockout. You lose Penance and Mind Blast and Mind Games if you're playing that in Shadow or Death.
Yeah, you
it's not a total
typically
loss.
That's not bad then. Okay.
you typically don't want to get kicked on Holy.
That's
just
more important.
Generally worse, yeah.
Because your cooldowns are linked to that. So if you get kicked on a holy spell, so like rogue mages will do this occasionally, is the way for you to cast if they're trying to kill the Disc Priest specifically, they will like wait for you to cast a penance, step kick into a kidney, and then you can't use pain suppression on the go. So holy is usually a lot more risky to get kicked on than shadow.
Okay. All right. For some reason, I was seeing maybe I'm reading really quickly as you're talking here, and I thought I saw a bunch of healing spells. So I was like, oh shit! Like, if you get locked out of all your holy, then you're screwed. That makes more sense. That's better than some other classes where if they get kicked on any spell, they're locked out of their whole healing tree is locked out. Yeah. So, all right. No, I like that. So, I'm just kind of curious then, like how hard is that to? You're talking like 5 globals just to line up your burst healing and then you get your flow going. How hard is to reset that?
It's not bad. A lot of that big ramp revolves around harsh discipline, which is that when you cast 4 spells, you get a big penance coming up next. Outside of that, like I mean, Shadow Covenant's a 30-second cooldown, so it's not too crazy.
Yeah.
And if you get kicked, like sometimes I'll prep this whole thing. I'll Shadow Covenant, Dark Arc, and get ready to do big damage with it, and then I get Cycloned or whatever it is. And it's not the biggest deal. Like it's frustrating, but you have it again in 30 seconds. So it's not like it's a 2-minute cooldown that you just get completely wasted on. But with that said, Atonement outside of if you're not playing Shadow Covenant with the ability, the one below it, the Abyssal Reverie, which buffs Atonement by an additional 20% for Shadow spells. If that is the only time Atonement visibly feels like it does something. I've experimented with like in Solo Shuffle, just running my 2s build in it and doing if I have 3 targets, all of us were like 50% health or something like that, and I do the biggest go I could possibly do. You will visibly see every ability that I press just chunks my health up like it's a flash heal. That is the only time that I've seen it. You will ever see Atonement actually feel like it's healing the targets. Other than that, it just feels like it's just like tickling, the health bars up, and it feels like it does nothing.
That's unfortunate. Okay. What about the capstones? I mean, they got some if thens on the priest tree. And then you got your 5 different capstones on the disc tree. Yeah, do you actually go all the way down to the bottom? Like, is that actually
Yes.
okay? That's like a mandatory. So
Yeah, for the pre-side, Powered Life and Void Shift are pretty much a mandatories. Void Shift is like your big, was we don't have a big recovery spell, so a lot of times it comes down to being Void Shifts. People always say, to hold on to your Trinket until you have and Trinket Void Shift together, almost like a Trinket Spirit Link. So that's like your last line of defense, and then Powered Life, again, really struggling with recovery spells, and Powered Life is okay, but it can be really imperative to winning games, especially because it has no mana cost or virtually no mana cost.
okay.
And then the other side, I wish the mind games part of it was actually worthwhile, but it's just not. Unfortunately, the other ones are too important. When it comes to the Distra side, Aegis of Wrath, I know in the most recent tuning that they did, they nerfed Aegis of Wrath and buffed the shields in hopes of creating more build diversity, but it doesn't work in it works in 2s, still doesn't work in Soul Shuffle or 3s. Your shields are incredibly weak without this. I was like getting flustered once. I was playing a Soul Shuffle and I got I was in the middle of a game. I don't remember the exact dampening it was at, but wasn't playing that talent. I was just experimenting. And before they buffed Shield, before this, it was 30k. Like, I kid you not, a power Shield was 30k, which is absolutely awful. Like, there's dots that tick for 20k in this game, and you're telling me my 8-second cooldown Shield is 30k. Like, it was embarrassing, the amount of healing, unless you run that all these, if you're not running Mastery and you're not running Aegis of Wrath, your shields are just useless. And like we said before, Atonement just doesn't work in 3s currently as a main source of heal. So without the shields or the Atonement, you can't heal, and it just becomes kind of useless. So, but other than the big shield, Wheel and Woe is definitely an optional one. Most people do play it. I personally do not, but it's really good for getting big shields. The whole Lights Wrath row, which is the next capstone, is not used in anything but raiding. I don't even know if it's used in raiding, to be honest. But that's why they changed. They're getting rid of that in 10-2. Twilight Equilibrium is one of my personal favorites. I think it just makes the spec fun for me because it adds that. I mean, this is just me trying to be enjoying the big brain, overly complex things just for the fun of it. Because it's always giving me a challenge. It be alternating between shadow and holy spells. Most people do not play this in 2s, or in 3s, but a lot of people do play this in 2s because it's a huge damage buff and in turn atonement buff if you are utilizing it to its fullest. And then finally, the Void Summoner is the Mindbender route. I know Bigmoran mentioned the guy in EU that plays, so he plays the Mindbender build. This is only viable when you have a lockdown class in 2s. I've tried it in everything. If you do not, so he plays with a Feral. It works well with a Feral or a Rogue. Outside of that, it is very difficult to pull off because how this all works, this is, if anyone doesn't know, another super complex spell. You would pair Mindbender with, usually with Shadow Covenant because everything is going to revolve around shadow damage. And Inescapable Torment, which is the ability below Mindbender, will do damage to your target when you Mind Blast or Shadow or Death while your Mindbender is up, and it will do damage and extend the duration of the Mindbender. And then finally, the capstone is a CDR, or cooldown reduction, for Mindbender to do this more frequently. But with this whole route, if you want to play this way, you need to be min-maxing every single button you press during those Mindbender goes, because Mindbender is only 12 seconds. If you sit a 7-second CC chain, your whole Mindbender is gone, and that build is now rendered useless. So that whole bottom right tree side of the tree just becomes completely pointless. All your points in there are useless if you get CC'd on every Mindbender go. So I don't know, maybe people haven't caught on to that guy playing like that, because that was something that was really frustrating, because you set this whole thing up, and if you get CC'd even just once, it was very difficult. But the reward of it is if you do min-max this, the damage was the burst. I gotta say, I made a YouTube video on this. The burst damage is the highest you can get out of any healer, out of any disc build, because it ticks so fast. So like when you have Mindbender up, you can press Mind Blast into Expiation, for example, into Death. Mind Blast, Death, and all three of those trigger Inescapable Torment, which is an extra hit, and then all three of those also trigger Expiation, which is another 3 hits. So you're pressing 3 buttons for the price, or for the result of 9 abilities hitting at once. and it can do some insane burst damage. Like I was just blown away how I was doing like 50 last season, doing like up to 40 to 50k DPS, which is unheard of as a healer, especially more so even than a DPS. That's like red paladin burst damage, and it was nuts to play, but it just wasn't consistent enough for me to stick with. And then they eventually buffed penance after that, and I swapped off of it.
That's a 1 minute go though. Mindbender's a 1 minute cooldown.
Mm-hmm. Even shorter with the capstone, so more like 40 seconds. But like I said, if you do not have the cast time, if you can't sit there and cast 2 mind blasts, and then if you want to min-max it even more, getting light spells in there to get the use out of Twilight Equilibrium, it's not very good at all. And surprisingly, even when you fully extend the Mindbender, which is supposed to give you mana back every attack, it's still, you actually somehow have less mana when you play Mindbender build. I don't ask me why, but I was burning mana faster as Mindbender build, and I'm maximizing the extensions of all these Mindbenders too. So it just didn't work out. It was fun to play with, but it didn't work out.
That sounds wacky. I want to do that, but at the same time,
It's
I know
fun.
I can't.
It's fun
because I don't have that ability. Like, I'm not that good. One other quick one. Power barrier. I know this one is important. It's like one of your saving graces to pre-go is drop down power barrier. Everybody hides inside of it. How well does that stand up in the melee meta though? Like the meta that we're in right now is melees are really strong. Does the power barrier actually block that? Because it's only, no offense, it's only a 25% reduction.
So this ties into your PvP tuning, tooltips. It's actually buffed by 100% in PvP, so it's actually 50%.
All right then.
So that's actually perfect timing on that, because you actually wouldn't know unless you follow the patch notes.
Yeah.
How unfortunate is that, right? So
now I feel bad. Big, how many times do we talk about hotfixes and patch notes?
I mean, quite a bit.
yeah, it's.
I failed in my own podcast.
To answer your question, realistically, for most people, you don't get good use out of powered barrier. Because if you are playing a melee meta, like you said, all the other team has to do is walk out of it, and what are you going to do? Sit in there and wait? Sometimes it's better to just run and line the damage rather than take a reduced amount. So it does lose its value, and there's a lot of classes. How many classes have knockbacks now? You have shamans, you have and not just LA shaman. You have shamans, you have evokers, you have DKs that can grip you out. You have you can get MC'd. So if you don't know, if you MC a priest that casts barrier, the same thing goes for like darkness for DHs. It is now the other team's barrier. So I can mind control another disc priest, and now that barrier is my team's, which is a really cool interaction of it. And then
I love it.
Yeah, and then finally, like Mr. Monks with Ring of Peace, which is, that's unfortunately a way shorter cooldown, so they almost always have it. And can I add this? They added, I cannot believe they did not change this, but the choice node of Powered Barrier, the Luminous Barrier, is an absolute joke. It is literally in a joke. So they added this recently, which nobody places this in any form of content. It is instead of a on the ground shield, it's a instant barrier to your entire team. That is still a 3-minute cooldown, and but the shield itself. I mean, I could be wrong. I'm not logged in at the moment here, and it's buffed by 100% while not in a raid. And it's about 80 to 100k, which is a crit powered shield, which is embarrassing. That is a 3-minute cooldown. Just saying.
It's another funny choice node for a priest is powered life and benevolence. Like you either get this god tier highly efficient heal or increase all your healing by 3%. Like, it's just kind of funny that this is this weird choice node.
So that was put in because of rating, 100%. Because rating, if you ever try to heal as a disc, there's no shot you're going to catch somebody below 35% health, because you have 5 healers popping them out at once and all these hots, and you never can actually get it in time. And then if you don't cast it in under that health pool, it's just a useless ability. So that is why they added that. But regardless, it's still, yeah, like you said, it's in any other in Mythic Plus and PvP. It just seems like a pointless talent.
All right.
That luminous barrier. I wish it was. There used to be some spirit shield or something.
Spirit Shell,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. That was a kind of an interesting ability. Maybe they could
I
swap it
I thought it'd
with
be a
that.
great idea to put it something similar to like a weaker life cocoon, but in AoE. That would give a just priest a way. I was trying to give suggestions on what they could do and to make it more feasible. And biggest complaint is lack of recovery. And maybe something like this where you can just blanket shield your entire team, give you time to kind of use the atonement, to use the penances to top your team back up. I don't think it should be that strong because you're on 3 targets, but excuse me, but I thought that'd be a cool idea because powered barrier, especially at low ratings, nobody stands in that. Got time. I can't do damage in that, and they'll just run out of it. So it would be really cool to have an option outside of it, but it just doesn't. It just never really worked out because of how poor it was tuned.
Sad, dad. That's
Mm-hmm.
I kind of want to move on to the next part, but are there any other main talents that you think that we should talk about before we get into the PvP stuff?
Nothing of this patch. Obviously there's gonna be a lot of changes coming in the next patch, but nothing else
Yes.
in this one. I think we covered everything.
All right. Big, can you go over the PvP stuff? Because I think you have a better handle on that than I do.
Yeah, actually, well, I mean, let's go through some of these talents. Are there any talents that you find you're playing 100% of the time for PvP talents?
Yes. So the PvP talents. Look at these really quick. So we got threes. It's always Ultimate Radiance. It's you virtually cannot play the game in threes as a Disc Priest without Radiance. And if you play Radiance, you have to play Ultimate Radiance. Unfortunately, I really hate that. That's a thing. It's been a requirement for years now. So Ultimate Radiance is always a mandatory choice. When it comes to the other ones, there definitely are some options. Personally, if most games it's going to be phase shift because of your ability to avoid CC. And if anyone's played solo shuffle, 1 CC can win or lose a game. So being able to potentially avoid a cyclone or a Hodge or something like that could win you the game very easily. So phase shift typically is my second pick. Excuse me. And then, but if there is no option for that, I'll tell you the replacement I use. Third comes, for me personally, it's Inner Light and Shadow. Being able to either get more atonement. So typically games, I'll start with Inner Shadow, which buffs my damage and atonement by 10%. And if I find that the game is coming to dampening, like it's a Resto Druid, Warrior, or something like that, where it's going to be a long game, you have the opportunity to switch into Inner Light and get more mana efficiency. Outside of that, do you want me to go over the choice ones I use, or?
Sure, yeah. I know you were experimenting with Archangel, I think, on stream
Yeah.
recently.
So Archangel's another option that I've seen a lot of people use, and I was just messing around with it, almost like in an offensive say. I know it works well with you pair it with Rapture and you just do these massive shields. But I was like, hey, what if I just do my atonement route and just use this? Will atonement become more viable? And unfortunately it still wasn't enough because just how solo shuffle works in general, the game is so fast that you need to you don't have time to do damage sometimes, to be doing damage that often, I guess. And I never really got great use out of it offensively. It is a good option, but what I found is that if you do not play phase shift, that becomes priority. Phase shift was, whether I can heal a lot, I was dropping that I was playing Inner Light and Shadow and Archangel. And it just wasn't enough. Like that 1 CC just lost the game every time, so I ended up having to drop that. But Archangel is a great choice, especially versus like cleave stuff, or not cleave stuff, like big dot damage where you really struggle for throughput rise, like Affliction Lock specifically, is a big one. Other than that, Dark Archangel, the offensive one, comes in handy pretty often. If with your comp. So a big one that you'll see is and to be honest, this is probably the best comp you could play at the current time for Disc Priest and threes is Evoker Death Knight, whether that be Devastation or Augmentation, and being able to buff these 1 minute goes that they have can just easily just win you the games. So that is depending on the comp that you play, Dark Archangel can be very, very good to use. And then Catharsis is also, to convert your damage. This is a big one I use in twos. especially in twos because you're going to get hit a lot as a disc priest. Every warrior wants to go you, every DK, every death demon hunter, everyone wants to go you, and windwalkers, and this is a really good way to get instant healing off. Because obviously when you store this up, you get a big purge of the wicked, and your purge of the wicked will in turn be more atonement healing. So honestly, like there's a lot of games in twos because of the way I play that I need this talent to be able to survive something training me like that. And then finally, I'll just add in Thought Steal. Thought Steal is where it steals a spell from an enemy player based on and you get a spell out of their book, and that is so important versus Rogue Mage. So important to have. It's not really as important when it comes to like Mage other comps, but Rogue Mage specifically because you can completely negate the go. So, like, for example, I don't typically use Thought Steal right off the bat, but let's say that because they're in stealth, they do their first go, and right before I fall off DR for the next polymorph, I'll Thought Steal. And so that I can, and it lasts for 20 seconds. So that means they cannot polymorph for 20 seconds. I can, play the game and not worry about getting CC'd. And on the other, and then, on the other side, I can actually poly the other team. So if you're playing a comp that doesn't have a polymorph DR, you can actually just crush the other team by spam polying everybody. And if you get kicked, it doesn't mean anything because it's arcane and you don't have arcane spells. So those are all the talents that I use, I would say.
All right.
Very nice. Thought Steal, because I play Mage every now and then, and I don't have a weak aura for Thought Steal, and it's so confused. You don't even know what's happening. You're like,
I literally call it out on stream. I'm like, this guy. So he runs at me and DBs me, and then I know it's gonna happen. I'm like, he's not gonna know. He's not gonna know. And then they stand there for like 3 seconds doing nothing. It's hilarious.
Exactly.
And then they end up ringing and missing it. But it's so funny to see when people don't realize they got thought stolen.
Yeah. Well, even as a rest or it's not that.
Yep.
Like rejuve is whatever. I think this expansion, but I like in Shadowlands, getting thought stolen as a rest druid is so you panic. You don't even know what to do. Like if you don't have a overgrowth or something, you're just like, what am I supposed to do now? Like I have to cast. I have to.
So
weird.
on that note of thought steal, so thought stealing penance, by the way, be careful with thought stealing a priest, whether that's shadow or not. Shadow is okay, but holy or disc. So this is a bug that's been in the game since thought steal was a thing, I think. But if you thought steal a enemy disc priest penance, you steal penance, which you already have penance. But when the thought steal ends, so after the 20 seconds, penance just completely is eliminated from your spellbook. You can't click it. It's gone off your bars. It's not in your spellbook. It's gone. And same with renew. Same with renew with holy priest. So you steal renew, and after the duration of like I've run it accidentally, like forgetting to switch back, and then I use it, and then it's gone. I have like penance is gone. And with the new patch coming, with penance being really important, this might be a good spell to use. But hopefully they fix the bug because you can't thought steal a penance because you'll lose it too, and then they get it back. So now it's like, oh well, it's like I got to call an ambulance, but not for me kind of situation.
Oh no. That is yikes.
Yeah, I was so flushed. I'm like, are you kidding me? It's like not even in your spell book. It's gone. I had to relog to like get it back in my spell book.
Question. Strength of soul.
Yeah. So
that looks really good against like warrior.
The shields break too fast. During Rapture, it could be good, but most shields are in dampening, probably roughly around 60 to 100k, depending on a crit. Possibly more likely on that lower end of that. And sometimes just one hit breaks that. Everybody has all this crazy sustained damage, and the shields break too quick, to be honest, to get really good use out of it. And you have so many other good options. Like, are you going to drop potentially like Archangel, which is 20% increased healing for 15 seconds every minute for I feel like that's going to mitigate almost virtually no damage when it comes to
it seemed good in season 1 when shield was proportionately bigger with your tier set. But yeah, I mean the other thing too is like most melee DPS don't even deal physical damage.
That is another good point. Rets, DKs, Demon Hunters, they don't even use physical damage half the time.
Yeah.
So they'll break right through that. And if we're on the note of talents that we don't use. Trinity, I don't know. Did this just get forgotten? Like, I can't believe that this is still in the game like it is. It's really unfortunate. So Trinity was very useful in Shadowlands when Powered Shield did not have a cooldown. Trinity works when you have 3 atonements up. You gain a buff, crit buff, and your atonements last longer. But your atonement can only be applied via shield, and shield has a cooldown now. In the past, it didn't, so you can go shield, shield, shield. Now you get the buff. Now you have a like 7, 8 seconds, whatever the cooldown is, a powered shield. Now you have to press it once, wait 8 seconds, press it again, wait 8 seconds, press it again, and then now the first one's gone, and you can't even keep this buff up reliably with 3 targets, and it just doesn't make sense anymore. And I can't believe that this was not adjusted for that. I thought going into Dragonflight we'd get a change of that, but we still haven't.
And what about Absolute Faith? Do you really want to pull your whole team behind the pillar?
Okay, very niche situation I've used this is against DK Evokers. So when you're playing, especially with 2 melee, if you know, but it actually works better with caster melee or double caster, because usually they'll grip one caster to the other caster, and then I will purposely play like around the pillar the entire time until their go, and then being able to poke out, grip both people out of the fight is actually really good. And then the other use of this, I don't use this personally because I don't really play Rogue Mage, but if you play Rogue Mage, this can be very good, because if you mess up a go or your go just doesn't kill, you pull them both out really quick, get a reset, and you go again.
Okay. I like that. I like the fact that actually has a niche ability then, it's not just a throwaway.
Well, it was interesting because I think when they first put that ability on the PTR, it acted like a spirit link totem.
Yep.
I think it used to redistribute everyone's health when you gripped, and then they changed it. Because if it redistributed people's health, maybe it would be a good talent.
Yeah,
but
the
I mean,
cooldown would be too short for that. I remember testing. I made a video on it, and it was too good. That was so. I'm glad they changed it, but it would have worked if the cooldown wasn't 1 minute for Leap of Faith.
yeah,
And Leap of Faith that allows you to do buffed healing too, right? So you yoink them both back, and then you can like pop a couple heals.
No, there's not anymore. That I think there used to be a talent, a glyph or something.
Oh yeah, okay.
What I would have done with
I'm
this
old.
talent, if you want my opinion, is make Absolute Faith changes Leap of Faith into the old legendary, where you would grip to the person, so it's more like a mobility spell, and you get 2 charges. If that was the case of it, I think that would have been an awesome talent choice. It would have had great uses, and it wouldn't be like overpowered. I don't think that giving Disc Priest more mobility would not be overpowered. I think everyone has, melee just takes 1 charge and they're back. But having 2 charges and it would grip to your teammate, I think that would have been an awesome talent.
That would have been nice.
Because 1 charge is nothing. Like, I mean, Wrestle Druid can do that on a 15-second cooldown, where they can leap to their teammate. So it would have to be 2 charges, but wish list right there.
Yeah. Just speaking of wish list, do you wish to have a 2-piece or a 4-piece for each tier set?
With the current tier?
Yeah.
So current tier, I just played 2. The 4-piece is revolved. So they really just did not consider PvP in the 4 set, because the 4 set gives you what a PvP talent gives you, which is an instant radiance, which is you have to, I guess we talked about, it's a mandatory talent to take, so you can't even. There's just no point in really taking it. Some people do play because you get slightly reduced mana cost of the radiances, and I think it's a little bit longer atonement. But personally, I just value the stats a bit more than taking the 4 set. But the 2 set, absolutely, it's like humongous amount of healing to your radiance and your Purge of the Wickeds. It's like 7% or 12%. Yeah, 12% to 1, 12.5% to Purge of the Wicked damage, and like 7.5% healing to radiance. I think it is.
But if you took the 4-piece, then you could pick another PvP talent. And give up the
no,
mandatory.
because it's not 100%.
All right.
So it's unfortunate. I wish it was like that. But this seems like they are something they're doing now. I don't know if you took a peek at all the new tier sets. They're pushing certain talents, which I'm personally not a fan of. But a lot of the tier sets revolve around specific talents. So if you don't have that talent, the tier set's pointless, which is a very interesting choice of design. Not a fan, because it really pigeonholes people's builds. For example, Disc Priest, I believe it's like the new one is like revolving around Smite. And if you don't take maybe that's not a good one to choose. Glacial Spike, Frost Mages. Not everyone plays Glacial Spike currently, but the new tier set is a buff to Glacial Spike. So why would you not play Glacial Spike? So it's kind of unfortunate that they're doing that, but it is what it is. But it's interesting that they went that route with a lot of the tier sets.
That reminds me of previous tier sets where they used to do that, like back in which is back like classic TBC and even into Wrath, and that where there would be a tier set where you'd have to go into a specific tree and build, and like it forced your gameplay completely into a whole different talent.
Well, I think the most extreme example of that was Shadowlands Holy Paladin in
True.
season 3 or 4, I don't remember, where their tier set buffed Holy Prism, I think, or something. I don't remember what it buffed.
Yeah.
Which is an ability you like typically never press, but then it just became the most Giga Chad heal because of your tier set. Yeah, it's an interesting design choice, and I agree. Like pigeonholing the tier set bonuses to be around a specific talent. Like for Frost Mages, for instance, I hate playing Glacial Spike. I don't like it. It's really not fun. People just kick it and you get annoyed. I mean, it's a good spell when it works, but it's just like kind of it's too tedious. So like, yeah, I don't want to play that talent. Like I don't want to have my tier set dictate 100% of my playstyle. It just seems a bit weird.
But they've been doing that for patches. Like that's not new.
Well,
like you're saying, like they tune specific abilities and they kind of force you to take them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess in a way, but it does feel bad when you just don't want to play that. Like you still have the choice, but like usually tier sets power level is way bigger than a tuning change typically, and you still don't have you just removes the option of even playing anything else because those tier sets are pretty massive. Like some of them are just like flat 10-20% increases, and you're kind of silly not to play them. You kind of feel forced to, and in the current meta playing.
Yeah. I'm betting that season 3 they're going to do the same thing with season 1 and 2, especially season 2, and they're going to nerf the tier sets. So it'll be
X
nerfed,
amount.
Yeah. It'll be nerfed. Let's hear. Okay, sorry. Rolling back to show notes. It totally went off on a tangent there. I love it though. A couple of things, because it's something that's really prevalent in season 2, embellishments. And are they going to carry over to season 3?
Yes.
So, okay.
Okay. They said like, okay, never mind. So to answer your question, so I play a few different builds of embellishments. My 2s, I actually play double Shadow Flame embellishments, which is just a damage dot thing. But this is something I learned from BFA, is Purge of the Wicked ticks very fast. So everything that is based on procs, Displease excels with, because Purge of the Wicked ticks so fast, faster than the average dot. So I actually tested it, and the damage is very high. And if you run 2 of this embellishment, that Shadow Flame patch, they double up on each other and they stack, and the damage is very good. Like typically in a 2s or even a 3s match, if I was just messing around with it in 3s, it was doing anywhere from 5 to 10% of my damage, which is a lot. But then again, it doesn't heal with Atonement, so it's always a toss-up. The reason I ended up going that route is because precog, which is the typical healer thing to pick up, is when you juke a kick, you get like the immunity to kicks in CC. With Dispriest, you don't care about getting kicked. You just typically just cast, unless it's like a very crucial flash heal or a crucial penance, and you really can't afford to get kicked because you'll die. When it comes to your average rotation, it doesn't matter. So you just let yourself get kicked. Like for example, if I want to get an MC off, I'll just cast Flash Heal in their face. Or I get a Schism off, I'll cast Flash Heal on purpose, get kicked, and then I cast to the other spell. I don't even bother juking. And a lot of people, I think Skillcats made videos on it. Like sometimes you don't need to juke. It's actually, not as good or disadvantageous to juke because you're wasting your own time. Because sometimes, the 3 fake casts that you do, you could have gotten an extra cast. You would have got kicked already and you're already back. So sometimes it's better just to not get kicked at all or not worry about getting kicked and just cast. So that's why I don't play precog. The other one that most people use is the zone one that gives mastery, because mastery has become a big thing for Dispriest. So typically it's either going to be that, the mastery, the Shadow Flame, the precog, which most people don't play precog, but some still do. And then the other one would be the Infurious one, which is when you CC a target, dispel a target, or purge a target, you gain a intellect buff. So that's the one I typically play in 3. So 2s I play double Shadow Flame. 3s I typically play the Infurious one that gives you the intellect proc, and then the zone one that gives me the mastery. So those are the 2 that I end up playing. And when it comes over to the season 3, they are actually, I was actually looking at it yesterday, they are adding some new ones. So we'll have to kind of test out and see if there's like some verse buffing ones and whatnot. So they might stay the same if those aren't good, but they might change.
Okay.
And
Thank you.
so I know you mentioned mastery, and I know specifically this season priest itemization is a bit janky.
Yeah.
um, and so what I mean, right now, are you just stacking mastery and haste as high as you possibly can?
So right now in 2s, I still neglect mastery because of how I play, and it was still very much works in a lot of like the stun lockdown comps like Feral or Rogue. But when it comes to 3s, it's unfortunately not possible to really play without mastery, which is really unfortunate because haste is I went on a whole rant about this, how hate you like pretty much every DPS class plays haste these days. There are very few that don't. And you feel like you're just playing the game in slow motion as a healer because almost every healer is pigeonholed into playing mastery because of the enormous benefit that all these classes have, like Resto Druids and Shamans and Monks and stuff like that, and Disc Priests and Holy Priests, that you kind of can't play without haste. Playing without haste is less fun, and it is a lot harder because your global cooldown, so the pace of you can press every button is a lot slower. And as a healer, you need to be able to react very quickly. So yeah, in 2s I play haste verse. In 3s I play hate mostly mastery. Like if I want to like try to give it like a percentage here, so like 60% mastery, and then like 30% or 60, sorry, no, let's go like 50% mastery and then like 30% haste, 20% verse. I still like to keep my verse at least somewhat high just because of how I like to play. But yeah, you're kind of forced into playing mastery, and then like I said, without haste it does feel pretty bad. So playing haste mastery has been like the go-to for actually a lot of healers now. And it's the first time that we've been shied away from verse in PvP, which does seem a little
Yeah,
weird.
it does feel right now on my priest. I play holy. I play with 15% verse, which is
Mhm.
that seems wrong. But
Yeah.
yeah, I
I've
mean you need the mastery
Yep.
as holy. It's your number one heal actually is mastery. Um,
Uh-huh.
Wow.
I hate
and
it. I hate it.
yeah, so it feels wrong. And same thing with druid. Druid you play
Yep.
typically is like as little verse as you possibly can get away with. And it's funny because like you feel so squishy and like you get attack as a holy priest and it just feels awful and you're like, why don't people just train holy priests? Like
I
that's what I'm always
know,
thinking.
man.
I'm like,
I know.
these people are running around with 15% verse, like they're no man, they're
It's
squishy.
yeah, it's like PvE gear. They're just
Yeah.
but yeah, I've seen Russia dudes as low as 9%, and they're like doing very well. They're very successful with it just because of the scaling of everything. I think Disc is kind of a little bit more less reliant on the haste side of things, or the verse, or sorry, more reliant on the verse side of things, just because they need to do damage to some extent,
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
so they can't really drop as much verse. Because I've dropped verse and it does feel like it still never didn't feel that great. And haste is not as impactful as disc as much as I'd like. It's really fun, but Holy Priest needs haste because you need to cast quite a bit, and Rush of Druids needs haste because you need to cast a lot of hots to refresh everything and just be able to react very quickly. Disc Priest doesn't need haste as much just because there's not like crazy reactions with it. Except for I would say the biggest one is just your shield being reduced as a cooldown. So I really didn't feel like I could afford to drop my verse as much for haste. But mastery is unfortunately a mandatory stat right now in 3s and solo shuffle.
And speaking of which, so with haste, I mean the the number I always like kind of arrive at is like 20% seems like a good
Mm-hmm.
minimum for most classes. Do you find that the same thing is true on Disc Priest? You want to
Yeah.
like probably around 20%?
Yep.
Yeah.
How many times, especially on the big thing on disc is being able to like shadow word death spells and especially well, I'll say shadow word death spells is probably the most important thing because if you have like really low haste, like I've seen people in the past with like 5% haste, which is like baseline haste almost. Your global cooldowns are upwards of I did the math on this. I think if you run full haste versus not haste, it's about 0.4 of a second. So, every so many spells, they're casting an extra spell on you, and you're not able to react to these Shadow or Deaths or to these specific abilities, and it really hinders your performance just because you're playing in like slow motion, and it feels bad. It feels bad like in a fun regard, and then you're just not able to react as well to all these situations.
Yeah, haste always seems like a very functional stat and like a feel good stat. It's
Yeah.
there's something mentally about playing with a lot of haste that feels nice.
Oh yeah.
And then I know there's a lot of race options for priest. Is gnome
I
technically
like
best right
Gnome.
now?
I really
Yeah.
like Gnome, I gotta say. But this was also coming off of the Boomy patch, where Boomies were
Yeah.
everywhere, and literally being able to, in a way, trinket out of every single root beam was so impactful. And you also get 1% haste, which is nice, and you also get an increased mana pool. So you go from 250k to 262k, so an extra 12,000 mana, and that extra mana is contributed to like Shadow Fiend and Solace, which are percentage-based mana returns. So you are getting more mana back as well. Other than that, I think it's Gnome or Night Elf are the big two ones right now. I used to play Kultiran. That was awesome, I gotta say. Having a stun as a Disc Priest was really cool. I wish that was if Kultiran. I swear, if Kultiran was a 2-minute cooldown, it would be taken way more frequently. But it's just a 3-minute cooldown, and it's just not worth it. But I also play Human. Human doesn't feel as good with a Disc Priest currently, just because you don't really need an out to stuns all the time because they have like that ratios to get them out of stun. You have pain suppression, which is huge in stuns. So I never felt like I got as much use out of that one. I probably like every, 10 to 20 games, I would get a good use out of the human racial, but Gnome all the time because you can not only get out of root beams, but if let's say you're getting trained by a warrior, you can pre-feather yourself so you have the buff, and then escape artist and get a whip around a corner really quick. So it's almost like how you use fade, where you can drop all movement and pairing effects and be able to just kind of whip around and get space, and then you're fine. So it comes in use every single game. Almost 100% of games, I get a good use out of Escape Artist, unlike some of the other racials.
Wow.
Uh,
Gnomes are best at something. That's awesome.
Yeah, I think so. Did you know they have 4 fingers? I just found that out today. They don't have 5 fingers.
That's messed up.
I didn't know that. I was just looking. I was like messing around before we did this. And I'm like, dude, he's only got 4 fingers.
Hey, don't look at troll feet, okay? If you're bothered by the 4 fingers, don't look at troll toes.
I mean, this is a fantasy RPG, so yeah, all right.
Okay.
Too funny.
And then as far as comp selection, I know twos you kind of have a few options. What do you think are the best comps right now for Disc Priest and twos?
So definitely Sub Rogue and Outlaw Rogue. Asset can be pretty good as well. I think the other two work a little bit better because Asset kind of works in more of a damper guard because of their good sustain damage, but lack of like burst. So I would say Sub and Outlaw, Feral as well. Again, just more lockdown that allows you to do more damage, which gives you more atonement, which gives you more ramp and momentum. Other than that, Hunters are meh. I personally like Demo quite a bit. Before this patch with the Wrestler Druids and kind of twos just shifting into a very dampening meta, Demo Disc was awesome. I think it was the best caster to play with. You have a Mortal Strike effect to reduce healing, and you have a lot of lockdown. Again, this is kind of the keyword here, is having lockdown with Disc Priest that allows you to play your class to its fullest. Outside of that, definitely not much else. I was playing some LE Disc. I used to love that comp in Shadowlands. But it's just kind of, everything has just kind of gotten really damp. So if you don't play a lockdown class, you're kind of forced into that dampening stage, which this does not do well in. So I think those are your big ones. I was so Rogue, Feral, and if you want to push something else, it's Demo.
Yeah, don't play with a mage as a Disc Priest in twos. It might be tempting.
I played Arcane. Arcane Disc was actually not too bad. I really liked it just because you could just output so much damage with PI and Dark Arc on an Arcane Mage. But it was less consistent for sure.
And then as far as threes are concerned, I know you mentioned the augmentation or evoker DK. I know that's been kind of popular for the past few seasons. Are there any other comps that are good in threes?
From personal experience, anything with an augmentation is not bad because augmentation makes Disc feel like an actual healer. because you get all the buffs. That's like the only thing that's felt like semi like every time I queue a game, I'm like I actually feel like I can heal this. Other than that, I think you could probably get away with any Frost DK comp or maybe DK comp in general, but more so Frost DK because everything revolves around that 1 minute go. So I think you could probably make Windwalker DK work and TSG, so Warrior DK. I think you can make those work very well. I used to play a ton of Demo Frost Mage disc, which honestly I did queue it this season a little bit. It wasn't bad, but you become a subject of the dampening meta every game, and if you miss one drink, you just fall behind and you lose. So I think it's going to come down to either an augmentation comp or a DK comp, or a third a rogue mage pretty much. So rogue mage. I don't think rogue, if anything else, is going to be that great. I used to play rogue Destro. Again, you just don't have the throughput to keep up a Destro lock. Rogue Mage works because you're constantly running in between the goes. Everything is locked down. You're able to do damage, spit everything out, and then once they're done, you're just running, which means you're required to throughput heal a lot less. So it does work. But as people have seen in AWC, Holy tends to end up just being the better version of Disc in a lot of comps. So that's been unfortunate, but I think the only thing that Disc definitely excels with over Holy, the only comp is Evoker DK. I think that's the one comp that it actually does have a good value in.
What about jungle? Is that like not a thing right now because of other healers being so strong?
It's okay. I think it's in the same kind of bin as kind of like a Rogue Destro, anything or Rogue Mage even to an extent. But it's like it's got the lockdown of a Rogue Mage, but it's a little bit more sustained damage than Rogue Mage. So like if a Rogue Mage is like a 10 out of 10 on the burst meta versus like something that's very dampener, Jungle's like kind of like a 7 or an 8, where it is a lot of CC and a lot of lockdown, but there is a lot of middle time. So instead of Jungle, instead of running like Rogue Mage would after the go or resetting, the Jungle typically would just keep going as passive damage and then do your setup. So you do fall in the boat of just being lacking of throughput over time. So same with like Cupid. So Red Hunter, it does work to an extent, but if the other team plays well and they start preventing your goes or playing a comp that has a lot of counters to your CC, you end up falling off to throughput issues again. So it's a lot less consistent, I think, than it would be. And you're always just better off playing Holy in those comps, I think.
Yeah. I feel like that's going to be the common answer is that, yeah, it works, but if you really want, this other healer would do better. So
yeah, you just press the activate spec button and now you're instantly better.
Wah wah. Sorry, I totally interrupted there, but Big, is there any?
I think we should go into some of the changes in 10.2. There's a few interesting things I think worth talking about.
Yes.
Have them open right now. There's maybe we should go into class-wide changes first, because I know Priest as a whole is getting a few changes, and then we can talk about Disc. So I know,
I'm sorry, I was just gonna add because I know there were a ton of changes, and I just want to add this before I played it in game. And granted, I haven't played Arena yet. The written changes sound a lot better than they felt. So a lot of them do, at least. Not all of them. Some of them are really good. But I was like, I can give you my overall. We'll go over like the general pre-changes, and I can give you just my my thoughts on the things that did feel good, and as a whole, what felt better, what felt worse, or just kind of the big changes of it.
Cool. That'll be good to give it context, because
it was a lot of reading. That's why I was saying that. Yeah.
Well, I think just in the name of time, because like you said, there's a lot of changes here. Why don't we, Big, go ahead, do your thing, but I think let's not just read line by line.
Yeah. So first of all, on the class-wide front, I know PI and MD are getting nerfed. I think that's probably more for Mythic Plus and PvE reasons than PvP. To be honest, the PI change, whatever. I don't think it'll be felt too much in PvP. The MD change, I think, is interesting. You're not really casting MD that frequently.
So I think it's only going to be a big thing versus. So the only time I thought about that, I'm like, oh, that's kind of annoying. It's a 2-minute cooldown. But, you think back, most games, you only mass a spell once in the entire game. And it's like to get a bubble or to get a block. The only comp that or like that I would would use Master Spell all the time with was Boomies when they would use their Incarn and Stellar Flare everybody, and you'd want to MD it all off, or maybe a Shadow Priest, or maybe a Cyclone versus because you can get your team out of a Cyclone with the Master Spell. So I don't think it's going to be impactful for that reason, but I think for the main purpose of MD in PvP, it's not going to affect for the most part because it's you get that one block and you win the game because you got that one block or get the one bubble.
Okay.
Yeah, that's kind of my gut feeling too. It's like most matchups you won't even feel these changes.
Exactly.
And yeah. And then on the discipline side of things, I mean, two of your abilities are becoming passives, Schism and Shadow Covenant. How do you feel about that?
So my kind of feeling of all after playing this a lot is they did simplify it, but I think they came to a good point. So this is also great to talk about because I was just listening to Automatic Jack, who's like a big Mythic Plus person. He put out a video today actually on Disc Priest and his thoughts on it, and it was really good to see that he actually had a lot of similar things in mind when I was playing it. One, it does feel clunky or not clunky. It does feel oversimplified to an extent because you have these big cooldown abilities. So like Penance is 9-10 seconds or whatever it is. Mind Blast is now a 24-second cooldown up from 9, and there's only one charge instead of 2. So you lost a lot of your shadow spells. So like Twilight Equilibrium, for example, where you would alternate Shadow and Holy, you can't do that really anymore because you only have a 24-second spell, and then you can Shadow Word Death. But I feel like as a design perspective, having to Shadow Word Death all the time doesn't really make sense as an execute spell. So it kind of like I think they simplified it to a good place where the base of the rotation does feel very good when it comes to shielding, penancing, and the modifiers on penance and things like that. But when it comes to the intricacies of it, so like ways that you can kind of make it more fun. I don't want to make it sound like I want it to be this overly complex thing. I don't care for that, but I want it to be like satisfying in a way because what it's come down to is you penance, you mind blast, and you powered shield. Now all you can do is smite. Nothing else. You can't do anything else. You can renew maybe, but like those things are not really impactful. But you used to be able to mind blast multiple times. You had solace. You had abilities to kind of fill your rotation, but I feel like there's a lot more downtime in the current in this version of it. Granted, it is better for the average player. Like we talked about, it was overly complex, but it does feel a little bit too simplified. And if Smite is not powerful enough, which I don't think it is, it's not going to feel good. Like if you were spamming Smite in between everything and Smite was meaningful, I think it wouldn't be that big of a deal because Smite would feel good. It's like kind of like how Wrath Disc Priest is. You can penance, you can shield, you can palm, and then in between you can throw in your Holy Fire smites. And Smite actually did good, decent damage. But the current Smite is not that great. And if you don't have the 4 set, it's awful. So Smite is really useless unless you have the 4 set. If you have the 4 set, it becomes a little better. The new 4 set is double. Basically, every time you smite, it smites twice, which 100% increase on smite damage essentially, which is good. During your Shadow Fiend, sorry, that's only during your Shadow Fiend. But outside of that, it doesn't feel great. But I will say though, the simplification of it does feel smooth itself. So they moved a lot of the power to penance again, which it's been a thing. It hasn't been a thing since probably Shadowlands, and even Shadowlands it wasn't that crazy. But back in Wrath, for example, that's the most recent example I could think of. Is penance felt very powerful and meaningful to heal. And the new penance, they buffed the healing by 30%, the damage by 15%. They made harsh discipline, so that's the one that you would have to cast 4 spells to get the empowered, the basically 75% stronger penance. It's a lot easier to get because you just press Radiance, 60% chance of that Radiance to give you a double penance essentially. And being able to do that plus I guess there are a lot of complex things in here. When you press Mind Blast, you automatically get an empowered penance again. So you're just looking for these stacking penance modifiers all the time. So your penances can heal an incredible amount, and then if you use Mindbender, which gives you Shadow Covenant, it buffs your penance even more. So you have like 4 or 5 different modifiers on penance now, and it can do an insane amount of healing and damage. Sorry, I know I went off the track there, but to answer your question with Schism and Shadow Covenant, I think Shadow Covenant was definitely good to implement that into something else, but I think Schism could have stayed as its own ability, or maybe or alternatively remove Mind Blast and keep it as Schism to make it less confusing to other specs. To like Shadow, for example, Schism could be its own ability and replace Mind Blast. I thought that Covenant was extremely too clunky. They could have alternatively just made it off the global cooldown so you could press it quicker, but if they want to simplify the class, it was unnecessary button to just keep pressing all the time. The only downside to it, though, is it doesn't feel balanced among Shadow Fiend versus Mindbender. So with Shadow Fiend, I think it's 15 seconds, and in Mindbender, it's 7 seconds. But if you go the Mindbender route and you take that cooldown reduction, you're getting this Mindbender instead of 1 minute, you're getting it every 30 to 40 seconds now. Especially if you have high uptime on your spells, so you're getting 7 seconds every 30 seconds versus 15 seconds every 3 minutes. So the balance of it is definitely not right. Hopefully they add more to that, or I don't know, maybe they might change it further. Shadow Covenant has been one of the most changed spells I think in the history of the game. How it's been so drastically changed,
Yeah.
because they cannot get it to work right. And I personally don't like this version. I feel like they should just get rid of it at this point. They shouldn't be trying to implement it. Like, this is going back to like forcing, like, players need to actually read every single thing they have in their talents. It's just so. I know they're trying to make it simple, but they didn't get rid of the complexity. They just implemented it into something else that, like a new player picks up, disc. If they don't read this talent specifically, they're not going to know these interactions, and you have to read everything to a T. Rather than aside from just making it embedded into the game automatically or whatever it may be. So it does feel in total of it feels simpler and more powerful, but it does feel a bit slow, if that makes sense. I feel like there's a lot more downtime in the spec than it previously had. That could be good or bad depending on the player. Yeah, and when it comes to, like, I was actually even messing around with the new. So they have the new ability too. The Ultimate Penitent is the cool ability everyone's been talking about. It's good for sure. I'm personally not a fan of 4-minute cooldowns. I think it's too much in a PvP realm, and it doesn't really have I hate just having these big cooldowns like this. But we did need something. That is, so when you go into the air and you can just heal everybody, it's not that crazy of amount of healing and damage. So I gotta say, I think I was a little underwhelmed about, for a 4-minute cooldown, how good it would be.
Yeah.
So if the thing is, though, if you can get it so that there's only one target in line of sight of you, it will send every bolt into that one target. So that's also something to know. So if you're in a battlefield with like 5 enemies with pets, and you'll hit everybody. And if you are behind a pillar with one enemy, kind of like I used to use Convoke, right? You would isolate a target behind a pillar, and then you convoke them. Instead of hitting everybody, it's going to isolate all those abilities into one target. That, when you do that, it's very strong. You will 100% top your teammate off, or do a pretty decent amount of damage into one target, depending on what you're trying to use it for. So that is a cool use of it, that you can try to isolate a target. But at the same time, I don't like, after having Convoke, I don't like spells like this, because if it's affected by pets, it's going to be a disaster. Because I don't know if you're familiar with the new BM Hunter. When they press their cooldown, they have about 6 pets out. So if this is wasting all of these penance bolts into pets, whether it's healing or damage, that's going to not be good. We'll see what the interaction is of that. But I wish there was a way you could target it. I think that would have been cooler. So like, you could target it offensively, everything goes into one target. But if you target a teammate, it heals all your teammates, or something like that. So I thought that would be a cool iteration of it.
Yeah. You just ruined my Wednesday by saying there's gonna be more.
Dude, I didn't know this. I was on the HTR yesterday, and I saw SSDS there, and I was like, "Oh yeah, show me what BM Hunter does." And he presses this call of the wild. Every like 4 seconds, another pet comes, and then I was like, "Where are these coming from?" He already has 2 baseline, and then he gets another one, and there was 6 pets out. I'm like, "What the heck, man?"
No
it's
more
like Stampede
pets.
all again. And then we have Treants, and we got pets, and we got demo locks. Like, no one's gonna see their screen.
Oh no. So I will
That's the
say,
comp to play now.
I will say, I'm wondering if the downtime and that reduced complexity, where the priest isn't always healing, would allow for opportunities for the player to find gameplay things. So, be it land the extra fear, maybe go for that mind control that they wouldn't have been able to because they're too busy trying to press 18 other buttons to try to just keep people alive. Maybe some of those gameplay things would come into play.
100%. I just tell people, like, and this happens to anybody. Anytime someone plays a new spec, they at first they're not going to be good because they're focusing on the rotation too much. And once you get the rotation down, you could pick your head up off the action bar and actually watch the field. And that will 100% help for the average player and most players that are playing disc because they don't have to worry about perfecting their rotation. They just press penance, they press mind blast, they press shield, and now they're kind of just watching the field and seeing what's happening. Maybe purge a little bit, maybe find a place to go for a fear. So you're 100% on with that. This is me personal preference. I like when there's like things that you can optimize myself, but for the average person, this is going to be an excellent change for disc as a whole.
Okay. And I don't think we ever talked about Palm.
Oh, yeah.
Is Palm actually in your talent tree normally, or
I don't use it. So a lot of priests do use it. I think it, especially the way I play, you can just press one when you're having all these damage modifying spells like Expiation and Twilight Equilibrium. One Mind Blast with Expiation will typically do more healing than an entire Palm. It just doesn't seem like there's a point to it. I wish Palm was the Strength of Holy, because Palm was initially a disc spell and it was like the core of it, like in Wrath. That was the core of disc, was just keeping up Palm. I would love for it to go back to being a real spell, and unfortunately, you need to take the other talent with it, so it takes 2 talents to go for. And it would actually open up a great opportunity with this more simple rotation to make this better and allow for like a meaningful impact of pressing that spell, because that would have been perfect. One more spell. I kept saying, I'm like, I wish they just kept one of those spells, kept one more charge of Mind Blast, one more keep Solace. Just one more spell to fill the void of time. I think it was definitely too much prior to, but I think this is a little bit too simple. Because I don't want to sit there and smite. It's not very enjoyable,
But smite heals.
They also, they all. Oh, if you want to also just make sure we're covering everything, Smite also got the old Mind Blast effect, where if you take a talent called Sanctuary on the talent tree, it's a new one. When you smite, it prevents the next X amount of damage. So like the old Mind Blast in Shadowlands.
Yes.
So Smite did get more of a use like that. But like we talked about, getting kicked, you are risking yourself of getting kicked on Holy, and then you can't heal. When you were casting Mind Blast or Mind Games or Schism, you get kicked on that, it's not the biggest deal. So it does double down with the being cautious with using Smite for the risk reward. You know what I'm saying? It's not that powerful for the risk of possibly getting kicked.
That's what that means. Everybody has to have precog and then just juke the kicks after all. So yeah, that's what I love about this game. There's those little intricacies. It's like with this, but then you have to do that and then that and then. Oh, and now it's viable, but you have to do all these other things to make it viable. So, speaking of making things viable, we always like to ask this question. I think you remember this from before, but the one thing you would change. So if you had all the influence, you're sitting down with Bobby, no question to the complexity, no question to the cost. If you can make one change, it could be anything in the game, but what's the one change you would make?
To the game as a whole?
Sure.
Reset it. I would love, I talked about this and on my stream, this is like an ultimate wish list. It's not going to happen, but we can dream, is make WoW PvP its own game, simplify it, make it to a point where you only have maximum of 10 spells. It's more like a league type environment, and you load into the game like an Overwatch screen. You say, I want to do BGs, RBGs, Arena, Solo Shuffle, whatever the heck you want to do. You pick that. The game that has a whole the game is just way more simplified. It opens the game up to all these people. It gives a fresh take to all the people who are sour on the game. That would be my ultimate wish list if they made WoW PvP its own game. We all love this game and love a lot of the stuff about it, but let's be honest, it's too complicated. It doesn't matter how much we say like Disc Priest rotation is simple, like I'm saying, to the person on the outside, this is the most complicated thing they've ever seen in their life. I had a friend from my job that watched my stream, and they said, I don't know what you're doing, but it's really colorful. And I said, yep, exactly.
Yeah.
So that's the ultimate wish list, make PvP its own game, but that won't happen. But that's my dream.
It's a good dream to have. That's why we asked the question.
Yeah.
Big, What's the? Have you changed your tune, or is it the same old, same old?
It's like the same old, same old. I really think a sandbox mode would be really fun. Custom maps, all that sort of stuff would be really interesting. Just to experiment with. I get so jealous. I watch Super Smash Bros. That's the game I play. I always talk about it. They have a custom game mode that they can play where they can just like they can set a scenario and just replay that scenario endlessly. Like, say you wanted to practice against like RMP, you could set up like, oh, I want to I want to be kidney shot, and I want my partner to be shadow danced on. Now I need to like figure out how to react. Yeah, so you can just press a button to reset the scenario over and over. So you can just practice like these unique situations, isolated, and just get It's like going to the gym. Instead of going on a machine or whatever, like lift it. Going to the squat rack, you just play up the same scenario over and over, and you get better at it. And I think that'd be really fun for PvP. Yes,
that'd be awesome.
I feel like there's no excuse after Comp Stomp. There's no excuse for an AI mode. And Linka said this years ago. He said, "Oh, wouldn't it be cool to like load into like like an AI version of, I don't know if the word said the word AI, but like an AI version of Sea-Doo and Venruki and Snuts and face them, and you could just tune the knobs." Like, I thought that would be so cool, and this would also be an amazing solution to solo shuffle because you could just get AI healers. You can't blame them because they don't give a dang, and they would fix the queues. So I was like, you know what? There you go. Just tune them up really good. Make the healers match the rating system, and you can't get mad at the bot because it's a bot. We always had a myth. There's people in the community. People are like, "Oh, this person's botting. This person's doing that." I'm like, what if it's just a conspiracy theory that they're trying to test the bots on purpose so that they can see how good they are, so that when Blizzard implements them.
I believe in that I unironically believe in that conspiracy theory. Like, you run into some people in solo shuffle, you're like, this is not a real human. There's no way. Like, there's no way this is a real person. And so I believe it.
Well, if bots can do it, that means they can do it. So I feel like they need to, get on that, especially for not for the mode. I mean, I'm kind of joking in a sense when it comes to playing other players as an AI, but when it comes to the practice mode, 100%, it should be a practice mode where you can queue the comp that you want to play against and stuff like that. That'd be awesome.
I don't disagree. I do worry that if people complain about bots all the time, and chat just said the same thing. I actually having that where you can play with a bot and bring that'd be horrible. I can only imagine what that would look like. Personally, the one thing I would change, we talked about earlier today, I'm just going to steal it, is give us map making mode. Let us be able to make community maps for PvP, arena or battleground, either. So
I mean, they've like implemented that technology in all their other games, Warcraft 3 and stuff, where you pick a house and you put it where you want it and you build it, and you take a castle, you put it where you want it, you build it, and the technology's there that they have. That's just taking the step to do it.
Yeah, I think it comes down to their fear, proprietary software, and what happened with Dota, and just they don't want that to happen again. All right. I'm going to roll into the news quickly. Right before I do, though, I'm going to plug it one more time. Steam Scale Incinerator amount. Send me an email, technicallypvp@gmail.com. And we will get the news and roll this out.
All right. Who ordered up an extra large can of whoop ass?
Alrighty. So for the news, a couple events had happened. One was Liquid's 3v3 tournament. Back on the 2nd and the 3rd of September. This is invitational only. It was actually a very fun tournament. Did either of you guys watch this at all, or
I did not.
Oh
no, I didn't either.
Too bad. It's too bad. It was a really good go.
I saw that Wealthy Man's playing with Kearney's team now, though, right? I think that's
yes.
What a interesting team. They have 2 rogues, 2 mages, and like 3 priests on their team now. It's pretty funny. But anyway.
Yeah.
Sure.
Sorry, I thought you were gonna say something there.
No.
Okay. I honestly can't remember who won though. forgot to write it down.
I thought Liquid won. Or
No.
No.
It was it
Golden
was it
Guardians.
Peekaboo's team?
Yeah, Golden
Peekaboo's.
Guardians.
Oh,
That's
yeah,
what it was.
yeah,
Yeah.
They beat Liquid in the finals. I believe that's what it was.
Gotcha.
Yeah. They won. They finally won against AWC champions. So
I am waiting for the day they open up 2v2 tournaments again, man. I did that one in GCD TV one in BFA. I love it. And there's so many people that are really good in twos that don't play threes because it's just a different game for a lot of people. And I hope they come back to that one day.
If not, we definitely need more community tournaments. We keep paying this lip service big. We really need to finish what we started and actually do that. OTK, they did a heroic or a hardcore classic speed run. So 12 players, 4 teams of 3. Once they were done, it became a PvP duel tournament. And so congratulations to Zico, Soda Popping, and Grays for Days. They won as their team. It was such an interesting show. It actually went completely overtime with some really good commentaries. But congratulations to those 3 people. They took, I think they took a majority, if not all, of the $25,000 prize pool. So I think that was it was just really interesting. And actually, I think that's the first community tournament this year that I can think of that actually had Blizzard, some Blizzard backing to it. So, hot fixes, as always, are coming through almost on the weekly, if not on the daily, mostly on the PvP or PvE side. I think one of the things that was interesting, there's an issue that was preventing players from properly being granted the Challenger, Rival, and Duelist. So that's been fixed on the baseline. And there was also some fixes over on the WoW Classic stuff. I can't really see anything that really jumped out to me for PvP, though, in the hot fixes. So that's that. I think the other one, so 10.1.7 dropped. What do you guys think of the new ping system?
I haven't used it.
I've not used it. I haven't seen anyone use it.
I initially watched Benruki stream and somebody was spamming it, and I said, I'm just probably not going to even enable that.
Okay.
He macroed it. The guy macroed it to an ability in solo shuffle, and he kept asking the guy to turn it off, but it was clearly macro to an ability, and I just said, probably. I think it might be good if it is going to have a use, it's going to be solo queue RPGs. I think that would be a great opportunity for it to be good. But I think in Arena, it's too fast paced and close knit, and I don't think it's going to have that great of a use of it. But BGs and RPGs and solo queue RPGs would be the spot to do it.
Yeah, I can also see it being good for epic BGs, just because that is such herding cats when you're talking about 40 people. I think it would really help. But especially, I don't know. I've done random BGs, and there's people talking in chat, and you can tell that there's people that are clearly not paying attention to chat or just don't care and run off in like whatever other direction. So I think that would help, especially if people aren't paying attention to chat. Other one, I know 10.2, we covered the priest stuff, and now that's live on the PTR. Aside from the disc priest, which you just talked about, is there anything else in the PTR patch notes that kind of jumps out at anybody?
Well, I mean,
there's so much stuff.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to see what I'm most excited for, is the new talent they just added yesterday to Wrestle Druids, PvP talent of Heart of the Wild, and that's kind of all I got my mind on right now. The 1 minute cooldown Heart of the Wild that actually makes our Wrestle Druids potentially able to do damage again. So there's a light at the end of the tunnel.
Heck yes.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
Big would have been excited.
That's all I care about right now. It's like in that patch, it's like all I see.
They
right
added
now.
it yesterday, you said, or
Yeah.
Oh,
you haven't seen...
Oh.
So the old
This is like
legendary.
yeah. This is I was gonna say it's like that old
It definitely has its flaws, but it will actually enable, because right now you just can't do damage as a Wrestle Druid. So having
Well,
that, it is like I tested on the PTR. Like I went to someone, I went cat form, convoked them in a rake stun, and then I think I bashed them out of that and ran away and just threw like 2 wraths and then a Star Surge, and I killed them in a complete lockdown, which was freaking cool.
very nice.
Yep, it's coming back. My time is about to shine with the Wrestle Druid. But Disc Priest damage is there too, so we're gonna have to test them both out. Disc Priest damage was really high as well, so a lot to just look forward to. I gotta wait till the tuning, because I'm sure we got way more tuning passes coming through. So we get to
Huge,
play with the blues too on Friday. I'm gonna try both of those classes out for sure.
Yes. That's gonna be awesome. Rogue, huge rework.
There's a lot happening though. So like there was Asa already got pretty gnarly nerfs. So I think it's kind of wait for the dust to settle on rogues, because the past reworks on these other classes had just been so monstrous, like humongous impacts on the game. So I'm hoping not to get too worried up yet. But yeah, rogue's gonna be one to look out for.
Yeah, what's funny is like everyone hates rogues. Right? I love rogue. I play rogue. I like rogues, but I know lots of people have very strong feelings about rogue. If rogue becomes broken, oh my god, I can't wait to see like the reactions people are gonna have. Like,
It's good for Disc Priest. Disc Priest play with rogues, so there you go.
yeah,
You get that.
I pretty much only play with rogues when I play healers, so I love it. I'm here for it. I'm here for the warrior tiers. Hell yeah.
All right. And obviously, the one other one, it's a big thing, is the new solo queue RBG, the BG Blitz is a brawl right now. If anybody doesn't know, which I really hope they do, because I've been spamming Twitter about it and in our Discord, huge conversation going on in the Discord also. Though Gray, friend and previous guest on the show, was able to actually get a queue to pop on the PTR and put it through a video up on YouTube. It was a Arathi Basin. It's cool. I'll say, just looking at the game mode that they've made it as an 8v8, the way they have it, they make it so that it's no longer just the sit and wait. Like it is a game mode that forces active gameplay, is how it seems. So
if you want my input, I think the biggest problem where they're going to have to overcome, because I have this issue when it comes to rated battlegrounds or even regular battlegrounds, is when a game becomes so one-sided that people give up. I think that is going to be a very common thing, because it's sometimes like a Rathai Basin could take 20 minutes to finish, or I don't know, they might have a time limit or whatever on it. But you know that the other team is just absolutely dominating. You're like, all right, I just want to queue up the next game. Let's just get this over with, because you know that they're just destroying you. And I've seen that. I was a big critic of RBGs currently, where it's just so one-sided. You either get dominated or you dominate the other team, and there's rarely ever any like even, I guess, balanced matchups where teams are like fighting and stuff. Maybe that'll change with the solo rated system, but that is my one big fear is, and I had that feeling myself where I just like, all right, this is hopeless. I'm just gonna wait for the next game, and then people are gonna complain and whatnot. And then also, what are they gonna do about levers? Because the game's gonna end, I imagine, and this is a really hard project for them. This is like harder than Solo Shuffle, I think, itself, because you got more people involved. You have different maps with different map. Like what if one team I don't know what they're gonna do with specs. Like what if one team has 3 rogues and it's a node map? You just lose because of that. You just rolled the wrong dice, and you just lose because of that reason. And they also reduced I saw one of the settings is they've reduced the time to cap a base. So that makes rogues even better. So they can actually still cap and everything. So, rogue's going to be a problem for sure. And we'll see what happens. It's going to be a big project for them. So hopefully we'll get a better idea after the testing on Friday.
Yes, indeed. I believe, and chat saying that, they addressed class stacking. So
that's good.
Yeah, I think they're,
regardless of having one rogue or no rogues, even if it's not class stacking, like if you have a rogue on your team and the other team doesn't, that's a huge disadvantage for you in a node map.
Well, and say if one team has a rogue and let's say a druid, that you have 2 cells, and
it's just unfortunate role.
Yeah, we'll see. That said, again, 15th of September, so this Friday, 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. Pacific time, they're doing the Play with the Blues. So really hope people get over there. The vendor for the tier sets are in Stormwind and Orgrimmar. There's a vendor for that, and there's also a vendor for current season epic conquest gear. So you can stack. You can at least stack yourself with a just port a character over and everything, and then get it's ready to play rather than having to do anything else really. Last piece, I think this is a really good piece to end off on. Statistics for bans that happened in August. So Blizzard has reported that they have banned a total of 145,566 accounts for exploitive actions. So against terms of service. Question: do you think this actually impacted PvP participation? Like, how many of those do you think were PvP accounts?
Not many. I think somewhere, but I think it's more of a common thing. Probably, of course. Is that for Classic too, or is that just regular retail? That's just retail.
That's everything as far as I know.
So I think it's very heavy on Classic. I don't think botting is nearly as active on retail.
There was a Asmongold video a while ago where no. There's a guy, Asmongold reacted to a video, of course. But there was a guy who was like a former gold farmer, and he was talking about
I think I heard
the evolution of gold farming, and it blew my mind. So I'm assuming a lot of those were probably gold farming things. I mean, definitely botting is a problem in PvP. It's the thing that's sad. I think the saddest part about botting in PvP is it's so hard to tell. Like there are some telltale signs, like okay, this monk, ring of peace, every barrier at 0.1. But then there's like so many. I find myself questioning so many players these days. I'm like, this could be a bot, but it could just be someone who's like good. It's so hard to tell. It's kind of annoying to me, if I'm being honest.
There's that thing on Twitter where they're who was it now? I'm brain farting. They're saying that they're using a kick bot because they
Jamie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't prove that stuff. It's so tough to say anything.
No.
Because when it comes to the old bots back in the day, I mean, I'll say because I got banned for 6 months on it, but like the old like Honor Buddy bots, like, it was blatantly obvious how they moved.
Yeah.
And they use the click to move function to function, so they move in straight lines. And the way that they use stuff, like I definitely had this one bot recently on my stream, and it was hilarious. And the guy even came into my stream and claimed that he wasn't, which is crazy. But like every single time I even 0.1 seconds into a clone, or into a polymorph or fear, it was fear. I think I was playing warlock. He would death instantly, and then I would fake it. The second one instantly cast phase shift or fade, and like it was interesting how it worked. But there are definitely some out there, and there are even websites. So one of the people actually linked the websites to me, and there's you can just you click the bot that you want to buy, and then you just implement the program. So it's there, but I don't think it's as prevalent as like Classic, for example.
Yeah, I think one of the things I saw a bunch of people talk about was Hotkey, which is a scripting program through Windows, and I guess it's not being tracked, or if it's being tracked, it's not being punished yet. So I think that might be the next one, but we'll see. That's it. I think as much as I'd love to go deeper into some of the PTR patch notes, obviously this PTR is brand new. There's a bunch of changes that'll come. We'll probably get some more time later on. I don't want to take up your complete evening, Markers. You already gave us 2 hours and then some, actually. So I appreciate you for that. Just quickly before we round out the show, is there anybody you'd like to shout out?
No, not in particular, but shout out, thanks for you guys for doing this kind of thing. I always talk about, like, I was telling someone that you were, I was doing a podcast, and like, oh, do PvPers have like a podcast? I didn't know that. So thanks for you guys for doing this stuff. I wish more people would find this, and because there's so many people, we know PvPers, they just love to complain about things, but it's just nice to be able to talk about all this stuff and whatnot. So hopefully you guys keep it up and we get the word out even more.
Well, thank you very much. 188 shows in the belt. I don't think we're going to stop anytime soon. So hopefully.
I get some you haven't got any like big name people in the community, like the quote unquote big streamers on here yet?
We had a few, I think.
Okay.
There's that one with Venruki, Azael, and someone,
Soda.
or was it just and soda.
Oh,
Yeah,
very
that was,
nice.
that was a good one.
that was a
Mhm.
fun one. That was as part of the TBC launch, the classic
Gotcha.
relaunch. That was awesome. Yeah, we've had a few people. I think I have a feeling like we're gonna have a pretty. I feel like a windfall's coming. Like we're gonna get a pretty big name on here pretty soon. We'll have to see.
Let's see.
Big. Any shout outs for you?
Yeah, actually, I have a shout out that Markers might be interested in. This guy Gizmo, he's active in the Skill Cap Discord. He likes to make weak auras, and he's made his own add-on now that tracks Soul of Forest rejuvenations. It will highlight if it's a soul rejuve, which I think is really cool.
Cool.
So yeah, shout out to Gizmo for making pretty unique weak auras and very functional add-ons.
I just found a life bloom weak aura finally that shows the stacks of the life bloom.
Yeah,
Like,
I've been using that one. I got that one at the beginning expansion. That one is insane. Like, oh my, I
You can't
love that
see it
one.
otherwise. You have to look at the frame. So I was like, why is that not in the game already?
Yeah, Resto Druid 101. Keep up life bloom.
Yep.
That one makes it easier.
Wow. I'm sorry. It just boggles my mind that something that necessary to make to be effective requires like a secondary add-on with a scripting to make that function properly. Like that just okay. I'm gonna do a quick shout out to Bonus World Productions and to the people that sign up to the Patreon there and give their hard-earned cash over to Bonus Roll, because that helps us. It helps a whole bunch of other shows over under Bonus Roll. So to those who do that, thank you so much, and really appreciate you all. That's all I gotta say. All right, I think we didn't really say it right at the very beginning. So just in case anybody listened to this and went, damn, I want to find Mmarkers, I want to follow him and subscribe to him and do all those things, where do they find you?
So my Twitch and my YouTube are both Mmarkers, Mmarkers, and I do have a Twitter. I'm not super active on, but it's Mmarkers Wow. And yeah, I stream every night around 7 p.m. Eastern, so you can come check it out there and watch some big damn healer gameplay.
Indeed, or some big dampened gameplay.
Big damn pen here. Yeah, there you go.
But
I've been playing Warlock recently, so I'm getting into the DPS scene. So we're gonna have to we're exploring everything now these days because we got the time.
Are you playing Demo, Destro, or Aflock?
Definitely Destro. After playing Disc Priest, I'm a haste addict. I cannot play something without high haste. And Destro has like a lot of haste modifiers, like kind of how Disc does. And Resto Druid has a 6% haste modifier, so like I can anything that's high haste is on the menu. Boomies, arcane mages, stuff like that.
Give me some haste.
Gotta have the haste, man. The big brain APMs. I have an APM tracker. I need to be 600 or plus. I'm just smashing buttons.
Jesus. That's funny. I have to admit though, yeah, playing Destro and getting off those chaos bolts and just seeing those big numbers fire off is extremely satisfying.
Keep a lookout for 10-2, man. Those are going to be big. I already mess around with it.
Oh man. All right. Speaking of big, can you list off where people can find us?
Oh, absolutely, I can. You can contact us directly with a tweet to @technically_PvP or by an email to technicallypvp@gmail.com. You can also join our discussions on the Bonus Roll Productions Discord. Also, you can visit the Bonus Roll website to find the podcast directory with us and many other great shows at bonusroll.gg. This directory also has a review system, so head over there and tell everyone what you think of your favorite shows.
Indeed. And as always, links for everything we talked about is going to be in the show notes. I want to thank everyone for listening, and we'll chat with you next time. Good night, everybody.
Peace.